Elements of life in asteroid samples. NASA analyzed samples from the asteroid Bennu returned by the OSIRIS-REx mission and found organic compounds in them that are key to the origin of life. The findings include amino acids, ammonia, and formaldehyde, which could have been involved in chemical reactions that led to the formation of proteins and DNA. Scientists have confirmed that the samples contain 14 of the 20 amino acids used by living organisms on Earth. They have also found minerals that indicate the possible presence of water. These findings strengthen the hypothesis that asteroids like Bennu could have delivered important components to Earth for the emergence of life. The future of humanity on Mars. Elon Musk does not abandon the idea of colonizing Mars. He is confident that Starship automatic stations will land there as early as 2027, and by 2031, the first people will be able to set foot on the red planet. But how will society work on Mars? Elon Musk claims that the Martian colony should be completely self-sufficient without being tied to earthly states. At the same time, he advocates the rejection of representative democracy in favor of direct popular governance. A similar system existed in Veliki Novgorod, Russia from 1136 to 1478. The townspeople gathered at the Veche and decided important issues themselves: laws, peace treaties, the reign of the prince. In fact, Musk is proposing a similar model for the first Martians. In his opinion, Mars is a chance for humanity to start from scratch and survive if the Earth is on the brink of disaster. UFO over Sakhalin. A video of a mysterious object spotted in Russia over the Sakhalin Mountains is gaining popularity on the internet. According to Newsfroll, the video appeared on social networks and quickly went viral. Presumably, the filming was done from a military helicopter. The footage shows a metal disc slowly hovering over a mountain range, reflecting sunlight. It is clearly larger than a standard drone. At some point, the object changes its trajectory and disappears behind the clouds. The recording is accompanied by the characteristic sound of a helicopter, which, according to supporters of authenticity, confirms the reality of the filming. There is only one question: what was it? The unusual shape of the asteroid Oumuamua. In 2017, astronomers recorded a mysterious object flying through the solar system. Named Oumuamua, which means messenger from afar in Hawaiian, it became the first known interstellar asteroid. But the most surprising thing is its shape. At 230 meters long and only 35 meters wide, it turned out to be abnormally elongated, which is not typical for asteroids. Chinese astronomers have suggested that such objects are formed as a result of tidal disruption when a celestial body comes too close to a massive planet or star and disintegrates. In their calculations, the best creator of such asteroids is a system with a red dwarf and a gas giant located close to the star. Some scientists believe that Oumuamua could be a fragment of a planet or planetesimal, the building material of young worlds. However, even under the best conditions, such objects are formed extremely rarely, so its appearance is a real interstellar rarity, perhaps the only one in our entire history of observations. Isaac Newton predicted the end of the world. Isaac Newton is one of the greatest minds in history. He changed humanity's understanding of the world by formulating the laws of motion and gravity. But his interests went far beyond physics. He was a mathematician, astronomer, alchemist, and theologian who sought to understand the world in its entirety. One of the most curious discoveries associated with Newton was his predicted date for the end of the world, 2060. He calculated it based on the Bible, or more precisely, the Book of Revelation. Newton believed that the 1260 days indicated there actually meant years. Having counted this period from 800, the time of the founding of the Holy Roman Empire, he arrived at 2060. However, the scientist himself noted that this was just an assumption. Unlike modern scientists who separate science and religion, Newton saw them as a single whole. He believed that the world was structured according to divine laws and tried to discover them. At the same time, he was skeptical of hasty prophecies and warned that incorrect forecasts could discredit the Holy Scriptures. Today, his views seem unusual, but in his time, natural philosophy encompassed not only science, but also the search for divine design in nature. Newton was not only a great physicist, but also a man who sought truth in all its manifestations. Burial of the Heavenly Guest. In 1901, an expedition of British archaeologists, led by Lord William Campbell, was excavating one of the ancient tombs in the desert near the Giza pyramids. Having opened a massive sarcophagus, the researchers encountered a sensation. Inside was a mummy that was significantly different from all known remains of ancient Egypt. The creature was over 2.5 meters tall, and its skull was unusually elongated and narrow, reminiscent of images of gods on the walls of Egyptian temples. The bones were much denser than human bones, and their structure indicated increased strength, as if intended for life in different conditions. The strangest thing is that there were no traces of embalming or autopsy on the body, but it was perfectly preserved, as if it were in stasis. On the sarcophagus, archaeologists discovered engravings that mentioned a messenger of the stars who arrived during the time of the pharaohs. The hieroglyphs hinted at beings who descended from the sky and taught the ancient Egyptians architecture and astronomy. Some symbols resembled star maps, and the interior walls of the tomb depicted flying disc-shaped objects. The discovery gave rise to many theories, from an alternative history of Egypt's connection with extraterrestrial civilizations to speculation about a lost human race. However, shortly after its excavation, the artifact disappeared without a trace. It was sent to a private collection, and references to it were quickly erased from official records. Iranian interceptors and UFOs. On the night of September 18, 1976, a mysterious event occurred in the skies over Tehran, which went down in history as the Tehran Incident. A report on this incident was sent to several U.S. agencies at once: the State Department, the CIA, the Pentagon, and the NSA. It all started with an alarming call to the commander of the Iranian Air Force. The controller observed an unknown object in the sky which was not listed in either the civilian or military registers. An F-4 Phantom fighter was raised, but as it approached the target, the communications and onboard systems failed, and the pilot was forced to retreat. The second interceptor encountered an even stranger phenomenon. A cylinder separated from a large luminous object and headed straight for the aircraft. Lieutenant Parviz Jafari tried to open fire, but the weapon system failed, as did the ejection seat. Only when it began to move away did the equipment work again. There were many eyewitnesses to the incident: military personnel, airport dispatchers, passengers of the Egyptian airliner. The object was recorded by radars and even an Iranian satellite. This case remains one of the most documented in the history of ufology. Whether to believe in UFOs or not is a personal question, but those who saw it with their own eyes have no doubts. 2 alien bases on Earth. American lawyer and ufologist Danny Sheehan claims to have video recordings confirming the existence of alien bases on Earth. According to him, one of the largest such bases is located in the Pacific Ocean, between the western coast of Mexico and the island of Guadalupe, possibly even under the ocean floor. Sheehan is known for his investigations related to UFOs, and in recent years has actively recruited witnesses to testify in the U.S. Congress. He is confident that the UFO phenomenon is real and that ships transporting living beings from other planets or dimensions have long been present on Earth. According to him, the underwater base is being monitored, and there are already hundreds of videos showing how unidentified objects dive underwater and rise to the surface again. In addition, Sheehan claims that the military is trying to shoot down these ships and capture their crews. He warns that the government is hiding the truth, but confirmation of the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations is inevitable. Oxfordshire Mirror. Mirrors are common objects these days, but in ancient times they were considered magical artifacts. This is a bronze Celtic mirror found in Didcot, England. It was created in the 1st century BC and is one of only 18 such finds that have survived to this day. In the Iron Age, such objects were incredibly rare and belonged only to a select few, perhaps priests or noble women. But what was it used for? For beauty, rituals, or perhaps to communicate with the other world. In ancient cultures, mirrors were often considered portals to the other world, and perhaps this mirror also played a role in shamanic rituals. Decorated with exquisite patterns, this artifact remains one of Britain's most mysterious finds. Its true purpose is lost to time, but who knows? Maybe it really did hold something more than just a reflection. Square structure on Mars. The Mars orbiter has recorded a mysterious square structure on the surface of Mars. The object, with clear lines and correct angles, has caused a flurry of discussions. Ufologists were quick to declare it an artifact of a vanished civilization, while skeptics urged not to rush to conclusions. Scientists believe that the reason for the appearance of the square could be very simple. from geological processes to a camera defect. As an example, they cite square formations in Tasmania that appeared as a result of erosion. However, conspiracy theorists are not satisfied with such explanations. They compare the find with the Egyptian pyramids and fantasize about ancient Martians. Elon Musk also responded to the discussion, suggesting sending astronauts to sniff out everything on the spot. Meanwhile, social media users found out that the photos were edited to enhance the effect. Nevertheless, even in the original photo, you can see a square. Is this an illusion, a technical error, or something truly unusual? Search for the divine machine. After Isaac Newton's death, it turned out that he was also fascinated by alchemy. This discovery shocked the scientific community because alchemy was perceived as a mystical delusion far from rational knowledge. In 1936, economist John Maynard Keynes bought a chest of Newton's unpublished manuscripts at auction. Instead of scientific treatises, there were his notes on esoteric theology and alchemy. Newton believed that the universe was an encrypted message from God and was looking for the key to unraveling the divine plan. He studied the works of the Rosicrucians, a secret society of the 16th century engaged in the search for the philosopher's stone and the elixir of immortality. His library contained 169 books on alchemy, including translations of classic occult treatises. Although today alchemy is perceived as pseudoscience, for Newton it was part of the great search for truth. He saw no boundaries between science, philosophy, and mysticism, believing that everything was interconnected. Perhaps it was this broad view that allowed him to make his revolutionary discoveries. An inevitable encounter with a UFO. What will happen if we discover alien intelligence? Senior astronomer at the SETI Institute Seth Shostak is sure that such a moment is inevitable. According to him, signal search technologies are improving, and their efficiency doubles every 2 years. If contact with an extraterrestrial civilization occurs, it will change the course of history. Shostak compares such an event to the discovery of America by Europeans, only on the scale of an entire civilization. In his opinion, there will be no panic. Rather, people will show curiosity and try to establish communication. But what if aliens are dangerous? There's no point in hiding. Earth's radio signals have long been scattered throughout the universe. The only difficulty is deciphering the answer. The religious question is also important. History knows examples when an encounter with a more advanced culture undermined the faith of peoples. The discovery of aliens can lead to a similar crisis. But what if we find only microbial life, say, on Mars? It's not as spectacular, but it would prove that Earth is not the only place where life is born. Shostak believes that if we receive a signal, it may not be sent by biological beings, but by advanced artificial intelligence. Perhaps the future of civilizations lies not in living organisms, but in thinking machines. A dragon egg? Mysterious finds often become the subject of the most daring theories, linking them to aliens, ancient civilizations, or cryptids. Sometimes the desire to solve a mystery leads to wishful thinking. But perhaps this story is truly special. In 2020, an Arkansas resident stumbled upon a strange object while digging a hole for a pool. It had a flattened egg-shaped form and was a little more than half a meter long. The man immediately posted photos on social networks, causing quite a stir. Supporters of the cryptid theories decided that they were looking at a dragon egg, deformed under the pressure of the earth. Indeed, the find resembled either a petrified monster or something unknown, hidden in a stone shell. But there were also skeptics who said that this was just an unusual geological formation. Adding to the mystery was the fact that the owner of the find soon refused to comment on anything and hand over the object for analysis. Whether it was an ancient artifact, a trace of an extraterrestrial civilization, or simply a trick of nature, we can only guess now. Fossilized bacteria. The theory of extraterrestrial origin of life requires strong evidence. In the mid-20th century, scientists began studying meteorites in the hope of finding traces of alien microorganisms in them. However, the results were ambiguous. In 1965, seeds were found in the Orguel meteorite, but it soon turned out to be a fake. In 1996, NASA announced that fossilized bacteria were found in the Allen Hills 84001 meteorite, which arrived from Mars. However, many scientists believe that this could be the result of chemical processes. Although there is no convincing evidence for the panspermia theory, it is known that some microorganisms are able to survive in space. For example, the bacterium Streptococcus mitis accidentally survived the flight to the moon and back on board Apollo 12. In 2008, an experiment on the ISS showed that bacteria can exist in outer space for more than a year. Nobel laureate Francis Crick suggested that life may have been intentionally spread by an advanced civilization. Perhaps in the future, humanity itself will seed life on other planets. Mysterious photos. This photo raises many questions and controversies. It shows two mysterious figures, and some consider them proof of the existence of alien beings. On the left is a tiny creature with thin limbs, a large head, and characteristic almond-shaped eyes. Its skin has a strange color, as if covered with an iridescent film. On the right is another figure, preserved in a vessel with liquid, reminiscent of exhibits that can be found in scientific laboratories or anatomy museums. Such finds are often associated with conspiracy theories about UFO crashes, secret laboratories, and experiments. Some claim that these are proof of extraterrestrial life, while skeptics consider them skillfully made dummies or anatomical models. Are these artifacts real or just skillfully faked? The question remains open. But one thing is for sure, such images fuel interest in the mystery of extraterrestrial intelligence and make us wonder, what if we are not alone in the universe? Nikola Tesla was an alien? Nikola Tesla was a brilliant inventor whose ideas were ahead of their time. However, his incredible achievements gave rise to many theories, including the suggestion that he was not a man, but an alien. Declassified FBI documents contain a record according to which Tesla may have come from Venus. The author of the book, The Return of the Dove, Margaret Storm, claimed to have accessed this data through an interplanetary communication device allegedly created by Tesla in 1938. The report states that Tesla's engineers were in contact with his spacecraft and that he himself was a Venusian, abandoned on Earth in 1856. This version seems fantastic, but the fact that such statements appeared in official FBI documents raises questions. However, it is worth considering that at the height of the Cold War, intelligence agencies collected a variety of information, including unconfirmed theories. Despite the mystique surrounding his name, Tesla remains a key figure in the history of science. He filed nearly 300 patents, and his discoveries laid the foundation for technologies such as radio, television, and wireless power transmission. Even decades later, his ideas continued to inspire engineers and scientists. Martian meteorites. Hello from space. Seriously, these rocks came to us straight from Mars. It sounds unbelievable, but it's a scientific fact. How did pieces of the red planet end up on Earth? It all started with a giant impact. Either an asteroid or a comet collided with Mars, throwing fragments of rock into space. Due to the planet's weak gravity, 2.5 times less than Earth's, the debris escaped Mars and went on an interplanetary journey. Some took millions of years to reach Earth. One of the largest meteorites is Tau Denis 002, found in Mali in 2021. Its weight is 14.5 kilograms. And the most famous is the Allen Hills meteorite, discovered in Antarctica. It arrived 13,000 years ago, and inside it, scientists found possible traces of Martian life. Kabayan mummies. We associate mummification primarily with ancient Egypt, but this practice existed in other cultures as well. One of the most unusual methods was used by the ancient Filipinos, who mummified their dead using smoke. Their method had nothing in common with the bandages and traditional embalming of the Egyptians, but it was no less effective. One of the largest burials of this type was discovered at the end of the 20th century in a cave in the province of Kabayan, which gave the name fire mummies. According to scientists, the age of the remains found is 700 years. The mummification process began during life. The dying person was given a very salty drink in order to dehydrate the body. After death, the body was placed in a sitting position and subjected to prolonged smoking. This process could last several months, after which the mummy was placed in a pine coffin and left in the cave. This method allowed the bodies to remain in amazingly good condition even after centuries. It is believed that this practice had not only a ritualistic but also a spiritual meaning. The souls of the dead remained part of their people. Gravity by Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was a brilliant artist, inventor, and scientist of the Renaissance. But it turns out that his mind was even more insightful than previously thought. A recent study has shown that he anticipated the basic principles of gravity long before Isaac Newton. In his notes found in the Arundel Codex, Da Vinci drew a diagram of an experiment. A jug moves in a straight line and grains of sand pouring out of it fall down. He analyzed their trajectory and realized that the fall is subject to acceleration. This means that Leonardo realized that gravity is a force that makes objects accelerate. But he went further. In his notes, he used geometric shapes to describe the patterns of motion. He noticed that if the jug moves with the same acceleration as the falling particles, a perfect isosceles triangle is formed. This was the first step towards calculating the gravitational constant. Although his mathematical calculations were inaccurate, the error was only 3%. Da Vinci did not have time to complete his ideas, but if his discoveries had been noticed earlier, perhaps the science of gravity would have developed faster. 500 years later, we realize how far ahead of his time he was. Ghostly Appalachians. The Appalachians are a mountain range that is older than the rings of Saturn and even the ozone layer. Its rocks were formed 1.2 billion years ago when the continents were still one whole. This ancient landscape has given rise to many legends, turning the mountains into one of the most mysterious corners of the earth. Among the dense forests and deep gorges, locals have been telling stories for centuries about mysterious creatures. The Mothman, the Wampus Cat, the Mockingbird Crow, and the Flatwoods Monsters. That is why today social networks are filled with discussions of mystical phenomena in the Appalachians. Scientists believe that the unique topography of the region contributed to the formation of a rich ecosystem. Ancient forests and swamps hidden from civilization retain an atmosphere of pristineness. Folklorists note that in this landscape it is easy to sense the presence of something ancient and powerful. Myths about mysterious creatures do not just scare but also serve as a warning. As before, stories help people be more careful about wildlife. Perhaps there is something more to these legends, a memory of a time when man was just beginning to understand the world. UFO in Russia. UFOs are a topic that has always excited people's minds. Mysterious objects in the sky have been seen at all times, and ancient chronicles and myths are full of mentions of strange celestial phenomena. Of course, most of them can be explained from a scientific point of view: optical illusions, natural phenomena, or man-made objects. But about 3% of cases remain unanswered. In Russia, interest in UFOs is also great. The first mentions of strange celestial phenomena are found in Russian chronicles. For example, in 1111, during the battle with the Polovtsians, chroniclers recorded the appearance of mysterious celestial forces, and in 1240, something similar was observed in the Battle of the Neva. Of course, it is difficult to say what exactly our ancestors saw, but the fact remains, mysterious objects in the sky have been noted throughout history. In the Soviet years, the study of UFOs was approached more systematically. In 1977, one of the most famous cases occurred, the Petrozavodsk phenomenon. At that time, a glowing object was observed in the sky, the nature of which they tried to explain for a long time. In the end, the official version was reduced to the launch of a satellite. In general, the UFO Commission in the USSR came to the conclusion that most of the observations were rocket launches, atmospheric phenomena, or weather balloons. But despite the skepticism of scientists, people continue to observe mysterious objects. Especially often, reports come from the Urals, from the Chelyabinsk region. In 1990, local historian Vitaly Chernetsov told about a strange flying object over Lake Zhiratkul, which seemed to take water from the reservoir. And in 2003, in Chelyabinsk, eyewitnesses saw a UFO emitting such a bright blue light that it was possible to read by it. Another place of power is the Perm region, or more precisely, the village of Molebka. This place is called the Russian Bermuda Triangle. Researchers and tourists regularly come here, hoping to see a UFO. Ufologists even claim that they have found fragments of an unknown device here containing pure tungsten, a metal that is rarely found in nature. Altai is not far behind. In 2007, local residents observed a huge glowing ball that lit up the night sky, and then a loud bang was heard. Some say it was a meteorite, but no evidence was found. In 2010, archaeology students filmed a video of an object hovering over the taiga. Artifact Star Key. In 1932, a group of archaeologists exploring the high mountain monasteries of Tibet came across a strange object hidden in one of the ancient caves. Inside a stone niche among ritual figurines and scrolls, they discovered a smooth metal disc covered in incomprehensible symbols. The inscriptions did not correspond to any known ancient language, and the material from which the artifact was made shocked scientists. It was not susceptible to scratches, did not react to high temperatures, and, judging by the analysis, was an alloy that does not occur in nature. Local monks called the find the key to heaven and claimed that the disc belonged to celestial guests who visited Earth thousands of years ago. According to legend, the artifact was part of a device that opened the way to other worlds. Some scientists suggested that the symbols on it could represent a map of the starry sky or a complex coordinate system. The greatest intrigue was caused by the fact that the disc had unusual properties. If you brought a compass to it, the needle would start spinning wildly. When illuminated with ultraviolet light, new previously invisible signs appeared on its surface. Despite numerous studies, the secret of the artifact was never revealed. Ancient alien flying machines. Here is an artifact decorated with strange symbols and images that resemble flying machines. Some researchers believe that this may be ancient evidence of contacts with extraterrestrial civilizations. The shape of the object is unusual. It resembles a capsule or a ship. Inside, there are figurines with large heads and almond-shaped eyes, which is often associated with descriptions of extraterrestrial beings. On the side surfaces are engraved symbols reminiscent of the writing of ancient civilizations, diagrams, or even star maps. This artifact could have been part of a ritual object reflecting the beliefs of an ancient people, or evidence of something much more incredible. Perhaps before us is an artifact left by representatives of another civilization. Vikings and UFOs. In 2022, an unusual Viking Age game token was found during archaeological excavations in Trondheim, Norway. This small artifact made of soapstone was discovered in an ancient well dating back to the 11th–12th centuries. Strange symbols resembling runes were engraved on its surface. After detailed analysis, scientists confirmed that this was indeed a runic inscription, possibly meaning battle brother or comrade in arms. But the researchers encountered another mystery. In addition to the obvious runes, there were thinner lines on the surface of the token, which, upon closer examination, formed a pattern resembling an unknown star map. Some alternative history enthusiasts have suggested that this pattern may be a stylized image of an object resembling a disc-shaped UFO. The connection between the Vikings and the observation of strange phenomena has long been discussed by historians and ufologists. The Scandinavian sagas repeatedly mention chariots of fire and heavenly ships plowing through the sky. Perhaps the ancient warriors encountered phenomena that today could be interpreted as contacts with extraterrestrial beings. Paranormal Britain. Britain is a land of ancient legends, and ghosts are not just part of folklore, but a real cultural feature. Research shows that a third of Britons believe in the existence of spirits, and in some regions they are even revered more than God. Stories about ghosts are passed down from generation to generation, and it seems that every old house, castle, and even pub has its own mystical story. London, as one of the most ancient cities, is literally saturated with ghostly energy. Here you can meet spirits in theaters, on the streets, in old hotels and churches. In the Tower, one of the most famous places in Britain, ghosts have become commonplace. People talk about the appearance of the spirit of Anne Boleyn, beheaded by order of Henry VIII, and about mysterious voices coming from St. Peter's Chapel, where many victims of executions are buried. But London is not the only place where the dead do not want to leave the world of the living. There are especially many stories associated with castles, the centuries-old walls of which remember not only the history of the country, but also the terrible events of the past. In Windsor Castle, which is still the residence of British monarchs, they say you can hear the footsteps of Henry VIII or meet the ghost of Elizabeth I in the library. Chillingham Castle is haunted by the spirit of the executioner John Sage, who tortured thousands of people during his life. And in Glamis at night, the restless shadow of Earl Alexander Lindsay, who once rebelled against the king and was cursed to wander forever, appears. These places keep such dark secrets that even modern paranormal researchers admit that there is clearly something inexplicable here. But it is not only people who become ghosts in Britain. Ghostly horses gallop along ancient roads, and in some cities, a mysterious ghost goose has been seen, which appears and disappears with incredible speed. The most terrifying are black dogs, meeting which, according to legend, promises trouble. They appear suddenly, and their descriptions in different parts of the country are surprisingly similar. Huge shadows with glowing eyes that watch travelers and then disappear into thin air. Testimonies of encounters with the otherworldly are often received from motorists. Many stories coincide. A woman in old clothes appears on the road, the driver brakes, thinking that he has hit a person, but gets out of the car and finds neither a body nor traces of a collision. And on the River Thames, ghosts are encountered especially often at the Traitor's Gate in the Tower and on London Bridge, where in the Middle Ages the heads of the executed were displayed. Myths and legends about ghosts are woven into British history so deeply that they have become an integral part of it. Old villages, hotels, even ordinary streets, it seems that there is no place in Britain without its own spirit. Many of these stories may be fiction, but people continue to hear footsteps where no one is, see silhouettes in old mirrors, and feel someone's gaze in empty corridors. Even if ghosts are just fantasies, their presence makes the history of Britain even more mysterious and fascinating. New alien mummies. In 2017, something unusual was discovered in a Peruvian cave. A dried-out Voldemort-like figurine with 3 fingers and an elongated skull attracted the attention of the entire world. An army of experts, including journalist and ufologist Jaime Maussan, were the first to study it. He even claimed that there were rare metals and alloys inside the mummies, like space implants. While scientists were arguing, the mummies found friends. 2 new finds, nicknamed Paloma and Antonio, amazed everyone. 3 fingers, slanted eyes, and an age of about 1,500 years. CT scans showed that their organs were similar to human ones. Traces of a knife blow were found on Antonio's body, and remnants of hair were found on Paloma. Hairy aliens are something new. No one to eat corpses. The Zoroastrian Tower of Silence on Malabar Hill, a sacred site for the Parsi community, is under threat due to the dwindling vulture population in the area. The birds play a key role in the ritual of Dominashini, the uncovering of the bodies of the dead so they can be returned to nature. However, a rapid decline in the number of scavengers in Mumbai since 2015 has put this ancient tradition at risk. The Tower of Silence, or Dakma, which is over 300 years old, is a circular structure that symbolizes eternity in the Zoroastrian faith. It is located in a 22-hectare forest. The outer circle of the tower is for men, the middle one for women, and the inner one for children. Before the body is placed in the Dakma, loved ones pray in special structures called bungalows, and the remains are then carried out by kandis, special caretakers. According to Zoroastrian traditions, contact with a dead body is considered desecration, and vultures play an important role in ensuring cleanliness and maintaining natural balance. But urbanization, habitat change, and environmental problems have led to a sharp decline in the number of these birds. The processes of decomposition of bodies have slowed down, which has created difficulties for performing the ritual. The mythical gold mine. In 1929, Australia found its Indiana Jones, Lewis Harold Bell Lassiter. He claimed that 3 decades earlier he had discovered a huge gold reef in the heart of the continent. There was almost no evidence, but rumors of a missing Klondike excited prospectors and historians. In 1930, Lassiter managed to assemble an expedition and set off into the outback again. He was accompanied by a pilot, 2 prospectors, Aboriginal guides, and even a representative of the governor. However, Lassiter was sullen, confused in his stories, and reluctant to show the way. Having reached Mount Marjorie, he declared that they were lost. His companions considered him an imposter and left. Lassiter was left with only a hunter, but soon the hunter also abandoned him. As a result, Harold continued on his way alone. A year later, he was found dead in a cave. According to his diary, he died of exhaustion after spending his last months among the natives trying to survive. Meanwhile, the legend of the reef did not die out. Numerous prospectors combed the McDonnell Range in the hope of finding gold. The press discussed the mysterious Swede Olof Johansson, who allegedly also knew the way to the treasure. Later, books and films appeared. Director Luke Walker in the project Lassiter's Bones found letters from Harold mentioning that same Olaf and hinting at the lost reef. Modern research has not confirmed large deposits in the designated area, although geologist Bill DeCarly came across a quartz layer reminiscent of Lassiter's description. He believes that Harold was just retelling other people's stories. Nevertheless, the mystery of the treasure continues to excite the minds of romantics and gold hunters. The eerie secret of the Black Death. A study of an ancient Egyptian mummy has shed light on the early spread of the deadly bubonic plague in North Africa. The 3,290-year-old remains kept in the Egyptian Museum in Turin have astounded scientists. Traces of the Yersinia pestis bacterium were found in the bones and even in the intestinal contents. It turns out that this disease penetrated the region long before the Black Death epidemic that raged in Europe in the 14th century. Until now, the oldest references to the plague came from Asia, 5,000-year-old finds in Russia and materials from Europe and Asia. But the mummy from Turin has confirmed for the first time that the dangerous pathogen also settled in ancient Egypt. Scientists recalled that fleas were found in the village of Amarna, where the builders of Tutankhamun's tomb worked. They are the main carriers of the infection. There is even a reference in the Ebers Papyrus, over 3,500 years old, to a mysterious bubo filled with pus, suggesting that the plague may have spread from Nile rats to ship passengers, who eventually carried the disease throughout the Mediterranean. The Black Death thus became just a bright chapter in the long history of the plague, and it is now clear that its sinister waves swept across the world much earlier than previously thought, and Africa played a much more significant role in this process. Discovery rewrites alcohol history. The process of distilling alcohol goes back much further than previously thought. New excavations at the tomb of Liu He, the 9th emperor of the Western Han Dynasty, have revealed that distillation was already known in China 2,000 years ago. Scientists have found a bronze vessel called a heavenly pot, which served as a key part of a wine distillation device. Previously, historical texts only pointed to the emergence of such technologies during the Yuan dynasty, that is, 1,000 years later. Despite his short reign, Liu He left behind an impressive legacy. In addition to the distiller itself, the oldest painting of Confucius was found in his tomb, as well as thousands of pieces of armor made of iron, copper, and lacquered leather. All this testifies to the high level of craftsmanship of the Western Han era. An experiment with a replica of the bronze vessel showed a distillation efficiency of over 70% while preserving the taste and aroma of the drink. Initially thought to have been used for perfume essences or medicine, it is now clear that its primary purpose was alcohol production. The findings provide insight into the evolution of brewing and alcohol practices, complementing historical records and revealing the potential of early Chinese inventors. Over 100,000 years old. Researchers continue to unravel the mysteries of our evolution, now discovering unusual 115,000-year-old footprints in northern Saudi Arabia. The tracks, preserved in a former mud pit in the middle of the Nafu Desert, have astonished scientists by appearing in a place where such ancient human tracks were not expected. The tracks are estimated to belong to early Homo sapiens rather than Neanderthals, confirming the migration routes of human ancestors in a changing climate. Thanks to a surprising combination of factors, the absence of strong winds and the local climate, the structure of the tracks has remained virtually intact, allowing them to be accurately dated and reconstructed as a short-term stopover by Lake Alatar during a dry period. The site appears to have served as a rest and watering place rather than a permanent settlement, as evidenced by the lack of tool or hunting traces. Some scientists believe that these tracks fit into the general migration route by which Homo sapiens moved from Africa to Eurasia. The new findings change our view of migration routes and clearly demonstrate how nature can carefully preserve the chronicle of life. A cache of royal regalia. An unexpected discovery in the dungeons of the Vilnius Cathedral shocked historians. A carefully walled-up vault with burial regalia associated with the rulers of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and Poland was discovered. Crowns, scepters, chains, rings, and tablets belonging to King Alexander, his mother Elizabeth of Habsburg, and Barbara Radziwill, the wife of Sigismund Augustus, were found there. These items were not worn during life but were made specifically for burial ceremonies. According to researchers, the regalia were first discovered in 1931, but with the start of World War II, they were hidden deeper in the catacombs and walled up to protect them from looting. The location of this cache eluded archaeologists for decades until December 2024, when a detailed examination of all the cavities was carried out using an endoscope, comparing archival diagrams with new plans of the cathedral. In the end, the treasure was found. Barbara Radziwill, whose tragic fate became legendary, died shortly after her coronation, which made her burial regalia especially significant for her contemporaries. A half-ton space find. A massive metal ring, more than 2.5 meters in diameter and weighing almost half a ton, has fallen near a Kenyan village. The Kenyan Space Agency suggests that the fragment may have been part of a launch vehicle that did not burn up during re-entry into the atmosphere. Locals noticed the object flare up at altitude and light up before it fell to the ground. Such situations are extremely rare since most space junk usually burns up or lands in the ocean. The incident reminded people of the consequences of 60 years of space exploration and made people afraid of another fall of debris. The most outstanding discovery of the year. During excavations near the German city of Retz, scientists came across a unique brooch dating back to the 7th century. This exquisite piece of gilded silver inlaid with red garnets, almandines, is considered one of the most significant finds of 2024. According to archaeologist Detlef Janssen, the brooch could have belonged to members of the elite, since such items are most often found in rich burial complexes. The luxurious Cloisonne enamel technique used to secure the precious stones formed complex geometric patterns reminiscent of intertwined snakes. The thinnest layer of gold on the base enhances the depth of the garnet's color, and the oval shape of the brooch lends it a special elegance. It is believed that the piece of jewelry dates back to the period of the Great Migration of Peoples, 3rd–6th centuries, when extensive migrations radically changed the political and cultural map of Europe. Personal sacrifice. During excavations at Huacasao Viejo in northern Peru, archaeologists have uncovered a startling practice. Adolescents were sacrificed along with their high-ranking relatives. Genetic analysis of remains more than 1,500 years old revealed that the boy and girl were the son and niece of the Moche ruler, Sesora de Sao. Moreover, the girl's father was one of the nobleman's brothers, also buried in the same tomb. Unlike the public ritual sacrifices common among the Moche, the victims here were strangled in a private ceremony in honor of a noblewoman. Scientists speculate that such a ritual may have served to strengthen power or family ties, but the exact motives remain a mystery. Artifacts found with the bodies indicate the deceased's high status, and strangulation may have been considered an honest way to send her companions to the afterlife. For the Moche, whose temples and tombs often contain evidence of sacrifice, this is a rare case of kin sacrifice. The cost of building the Cheops Pyramid. We are used to skyscrapers that grow with the help of metal frames and modern technology, but the Cheops Pyramid, built around 2600 BC, still amazes the imagination. Its height reached 146 meters, and only by the 13th century AD did buildings appear higher. To understand how much it would cost to build such a pyramid today, historians and engineers estimated the costs of stone, transportation, salaries, crane rental, and other details. The amount is impressive, about $5 billion. After all, about 2.5 million cubic meters of limestone will be needed, for which you'll have to go to quarries, and for the interior cladding, thousands of tons of granite from Aswan, located hundreds of kilometers away. Add to this designers, geologists, fuel for transporting blocks and giant cranes. In ancient times, everything was done by hand. It is believed that thousands of free workers worked on the construction site, regularly changing teams that received decent food and housing. They moved multi-ton blocks along ramps using wooden rollers and erected a colossal structure that was surprisingly precise in its fit. Even today, it is impossible to fit a knife blade between some of the stones. According to some experts, the construction took from 20 to 27 years. About 2 tons of meat were needed daily to feed the workers, not counting grain, vegetables, and water. It is noteworthy that the project itself was headed by Himeun, the pharaoh's nephew, who actually acted as the chief architect. It was he who coordinated the work of tens of thousands of people, which in itself speaks of the impressive organization of labor in ancient Egypt. Today, the pyramids remain not only an object of historical heritage, but also a source of eternal questions about what humanity is capable of in order to realize ambitious goals. For the Egyptians, the Pyramid of Cheops was more than just a building. It was a symbol of the pharaoh's power and the highest engineering achievement of its time, which still inspires us to bold achievements. Meteorites help win the lottery. In 2015, a bright meteor flew over Kanchanaburi, Thailand, lighting up the sky with green and orange flashes. Since then, there have been rumors that its debris has scattered around the area. In fact, meteors have visited Thailand more than once in recent years, leaving people with black stones that are believed to have magical powers. The most famous story comes from Phatthalung province. A married couple from Sirapu, Adan, discovered strange boulders weighing up to 20 kilograms in a palm plantation. At night, lightning struck the garden, and in the morning the couple saw burning holes with mysterious fragments in them. Having taken the gift from heaven home, they soon felt a surge of energy and noticed that they began to quarrel less. Interested neighbors noticed unusual patterns on the surface of the stones, mistaking them for lucky numbers for the lottery. This is a popular hobby in Thailand. Although there was no big win, the belief in special properties only grew stronger. Now, people often come to the owners to charge themselves with cosmic energy, and some are thinking about making money on such relics. This cult of heavenly stones shows how a natural phenomenon can turn into a mystical one, reflecting a craving for miracles and a desire to join the secrets of space. The last refuge of the lonely woman. From 1835 to 1853, a Nicolaso woman lived alone on San Nicolas Island, the furthest island in the English Channel. It was this story that inspired Scott Odell to write Island of the Blue Dolphins. When her people were evacuated due to the threat of otter hunters, the ship quickly sailed away, leaving the young girl alone. According to some accounts, she jumped into the water to save a boy. According to others, she was left behind by a strong storm. In any case, she lived in isolation for the next 18 years, eating seals, roots, and shellfish. Fishermen often spotted a mysterious figure on the shore, but they were unable to catch her. Finally, trapper George Nidiver and his companions, seeing fresh tracks, found this brave islander dressed in a skirt of green cormorant feathers. The woman turned out to be friendly and cheerful, although she spoke a language that no one understood. Her entire tribe had disappeared by that time, and attempts to communicate were limited to gestures and original chants. She lived with Nidiver for 7 weeks, then fell ill with dysentery and died, having managed to accept Christianity under the name Juana Maria. Artifacts found later, harpoons, hooks, shell jewelry, testify to her way of life and craftsmanship. San Nicolas Island today serves as a military base, and the fate of a lonely woman remains one of the most touching stories of survival and fortitude. Hidden medieval stories. Iceland has a rich literary history dating back to the Middle Ages. Here on an island with a population of just 380,000, many people write books following traditions that began with the Vikings. Scholars believe that the Skalds, Icelandic poets, not only glorified the kings of Norway, but also laid the foundation for epic prose and vast bodies of knowledge. Medieval texts, from royal sagas to theological treatises, were written on expensive calfskin parchment, vellum. When a book aged, its materials were often reused, the text was cut out for new entries, or covers were made from the scraps, and sometimes even church mitres. In particularly rare cases, palimpsests appeared, parchments on which the old text was erased or scraped off, and new text was written in its place. This practice became especially widespread after the Reformation of the 16th century, when Latin services were replaced by Icelandic. But fragments of the old are often visible beneath the new writing, and modern methods make it possible to unravel the mysteries of a bygone era. Child finds Neanderthal tool. 3 years ago, 6-year-old Ben picked up an unusual stone on a Sussex beach. He forgot about the find when he got home, but it later turned out to be a 50,000-year-old Neanderthal axe. When Ben's family contacted James Sainsbury, curator of the Worthing Museum of Archaeology, he expected to see an ordinary cobblestone, but one look confirmed its uniqueness. This is a hand axe of late Neanderthals. They are extremely rare because at that time their population was small. The museum has only one such example, and the new find, judging by the state of preservation, lay underwater for a long time. Researchers date this period to the end of the existence of Neanderthals in Europe, when they were already occupying British lands. Probably the stone was carried along with pebbles from the English Channel, or even from the flooded region of Doggerland, inhabited by people thousands of years ago. On November 24th, Ben and his parents delivered the axe to the museum. An hour later, it was on display. Sainsbury stressed that this was a rare find for Sussex. Ben's family is pleased that the accidental discovery has become a major contribution to science. a graveyard 3,000 km long. From 1840 to 1860, hundreds of thousands of settlers headed to the American West along the so-called Oregon Trail, a route about 3,200 kilometers long from the banks of the Missouri to the Willamette Valley. They crossed endless prairies, arid steppes, and formidable mountain passes, often spending more than half a year on the road. The journey was full of trials. Lack of food, thirst, disease, and unpredictable weather killed many before reaching their destination. Historically, this region, called the Oregon Territory, belonged to Great Britain, but America laid claim to it after the purchase of Louisiana and successful migration to new lands. The first expeditions of Lewis and Clark and fur trader John Astor paved the way, but it was not until 1836 that the first wagons with settler families set off along the western road. By 1843, about 1,000 immigrants had already formed the famous wagon train of the Great Migration, proving that it was possible to overcome such a dangerous route. However, the road easily turned into a real nightmare. Fast rivers overturned carts, cholera and typhoid fever mercilessly took lives, and careless handling of weapons led to tragedies. According to statistics, there are up to 10 graves on every mile of the trail, and now they say that the Oregon Trail is the longest cemetery in the world. Many of the monuments along it are unnamed because they had to be buried hastily, sometimes compacting the earth with the wheels of wagons so that predators would not find the remains. Thus, the legends and myths about the conquest of the Wild West are closely intertwined with the history of dramatic human destinies. Chatsworth's Great Orangery. Long before Joseph Paxton built the iconic Crystal Palace for the Great Exhibition of 1851, he honed his craft at Chatsworth House in picturesque Derbyshire. There he built the colossal Great Orangery, a giant glass house where Paxton pioneered the techniques that would later be used to build London's biggest architectural sensation. As early as the 1830s, while serving as head gardener, Paxton reimagined the landscape of Chatsworth, creating a 16-hectare arboretum and growing exotic crops like pineapples. The idea of modern orangeries was just gaining momentum, and the existing ones at Chatsworth had already fallen into disrepair. Paxton introduced a new roof design, oriented at an angle to the morning and evening sun, and an original metal frame that let in maximum daylight. This approach was quickly adopted by others. In 1836, he began construction of a grand greenhouse, 70 meters long, 38 meters wide, and almost 20 meters high. Even a couple of carriages could pass inside, and a staircase hidden behind rocky ledges led to a gallery with a view of the crowns of tropical palms. The warm climate was provided by 8 coal boilers connected by an underground labyrinth of pipes and a railway that delivered fuel. Up to 300 tons of coal were needed for the winter. However, by the beginning of the First World War, there was a catastrophic shortage of fuel, heating was stopped, and all the plants died. The great greenhouse, insanely expensive to maintain, was soon demolished. But it was here that the technologies were born that made the magnificent radiance of the Crystal Palace possible. A very expensive find. In August, Canadian mining company Lucara Diamond Corp announced the discovery of what is believed to be the second largest diamond in the world. It weighs 2492 carats. The stone was found in the Karo mine in Botswana, where another record-breaking diamond, the 1109-carat Lesedi La Rona, was found in 2015 and sold for $53 million 2 years later. The largest diamond in the world is still the famous Cullinan, weighing 3,106 carats, discovered in South Africa in 1905. To extract such impressive stones, the company used a specially developed tool, the Mega Diamond Recovery System, based on X-ray transmission. This technology is designed to find and extract huge gems that remain hidden in the bowels of the earth. The Shugborough Code Mystery. The 8-letter riddle engraved on the Shepherd's Monument at Shugborough, Staffordshire, has puzzled historians, cipher buffs, and even prominent figures such as Charles Darwin and Charles Dickens for more than 2 centuries. Between the initials D and M are the letters OUOSVAVV, and no one knows for sure what they mean. The monument itself is a loose reinterpretation of the famous painting by Nicolas Poussin, The Shepherds of Arcadia, with the Latin inscription Et in Arcadia ego, I too am in Arcadia, which gave rise to many legends about the connection with the search for the Holy Grail and the secrets of the Knights Templar. Some researchers believe that the inscription on the monument is just an elegant joke. Others are trying to read a hidden religious message in the letters. For example, American Keith Massey, an experienced Latinist and former employee of the National Security Agency, claims that the letters are deciphered as Oro ut omnes sequantur, viam ad verum vitam, which is translated from Latin as I pray that all follow the path to true life. In his opinion, this phrase refers to the words of Christ from the Gospel of John. There is another explanation. The pair D and M is interpreted as dis manibus, a Roman formula for the spirits of the underworld found on Christian tombstones. But there is still no evidence for an unambiguous version. So this bizarre chain of letters carved on a stone in the middle of well-groomed landscapes continues to excite the imagination of everyone who tries to guess its secret. Ancient Egyptian bread. The bread, amented to be between 3,369 and 3,406 years old, was found in the tomb of an architect who served Pharaoh Amenhotep III. The bread is an amazing example of how food was preserved thanks to the advanced mummification techniques used by the ancient Egyptians. The Egyptians mummified not only their bodies, but also the food they believed the dead could use in the afterlife. The process involved treating the food with salt, drying it slowly, binding it, and coating it with resin to protect it from deterioration. The loaves show traces of their characteristic texture and shape, confirming their origin and ritual role. The bread was a symbolic and practical preparation for life after death, reflecting the Egyptians' deep belief that they would need everything they had on earth in the afterlife. It existed. Until recently, scientists believed that the grandiose project to build the capital of Assyria, Dur-Sharrukin, Khorsabad, froze in a half-finished form after the death of King Sargon II. However, new geophysical research proves the opposite. The city was completed and actively functioning. Archaeologists used the magnetometry method, which allowed them to discover the remains of an impressive 127-room villa, probable royal gardens, and a water gate, as well as other large structures. All these discoveries indicate that Khorsabad was a thriving center beyond the main palace. Conceived by Sargon II himself in 713 BC as the Fortress of Sargon, the city did not sink into oblivion after his death. New data contradicts the long-standing opinion about the unfinished project and reveals the hidden life of the ancient capital. Work resumed in 2017 after the area was liberated from ISIS. Led by the French archaeological mission, the team used a high-precision magnetometer to visualize underground structures without expensive excavations. It turned out that Khorsabad, contrary to long-held doubts, served as a full-fledged capital of Assyria. And now modern discoveries are revealing even more about the scale and wealth of the ancient empire. Hoard of 11th century coins. At the future site of the Sizewell C nuclear power station in Suffolk, archaeologists from Oxford Cotswold Archaeology have discovered a rare hoard of 321 11th century silver coins in perfect condition. The coins were carefully sealed in a lead roll, which the researchers nicknamed paste because of its resemblance to a Cornish pasty. Archaeologist Andrew Pegg admits that his hands were shaking when he first saw the shiny edge of one of the coins. The dating of this find covers the era of three English kings at once: Harold I, Harthacnut, and Edward the Confessor. Most of the coins were minted in London, but there are also examples from Thetford, Norwich, Ipswich, and even Lincoln. According to archaeologists, the owner of the hoard belonged to the wealthy middle class and, fearing political change, decided to hide his savings. Most likely, he was unable to return for them or find the place where he buried the treasure. Tomb of the Magician. In Saqqara, the necropolis of ancient Memphis, archaeologists have discovered the tomb of the royal physician Teti Nebfu, who lived about 4,000 years ago. According to the surviving inscriptions on the walls and sarcophagus, it has been established that he served under the pharaoh Pepi II and held many titles: chief physician of the palace, chief dentist, director of medicinal plants, priest and magician of the goddess Selket. Since Selket patronized dangerous creatures with poison, scientists believe that Teti Nebfu knew how to treat poisonous bites. Despite the fact that the tomb was partially looted, its walls have been preserved in excellent condition and are decorated with bright paintings, scenes of offerings, a false door, ritual images. In addition to royal burials, burials of royal officials, including associates and servants of Pepi II, were previously found in Saqqara. Recently, several stone sarcophagi with hieroglyphs dedicated to the gods of Upper and Lower Egypt were also excavated there. According to experts, the splendor of Teti Nebfu's final resting place speaks to the high status of healing and magic at that time. The Egyptians had deep knowledge of anatomy, knew how to treat serious illnesses, and considered words and rituals to be as important as medicines. The mythical giant. The Cardiff Giant, a supposed petrified man 10 feet tall, was discovered in 1869 by workers digging a well in Cardiff, New York. The giant was actually a fake, made from a block of gypsum. It was taken to a farm in Cardiff where it was buried for a year before being discovered by workers. The idea for the giant was George Hull's, who wanted to prove the public's naivety and exploit people's religious beliefs about giant men mentioned in the Bible. After the giant was found, it became the subject of mass attention, with spectators paying to see it. Barnum, a famous showman, offered to buy the giant but was refused. He then created his own replica and claimed that his version was genuine and the original was a fake. In 1870, both giants were found to be fakes, but the Cardiff Giant went down in history as one of the greatest hoaxes of the 19th century. Lighthouse of Terror. Lighthouses have long been shrouded in mysticism. Their seemingly purely utilitarian task of guiding ships comes up against the unpredictable power of ocean waves. However, the Thévenet Lighthouse in Brittany, France has a particularly sinister reputation. Immediately after it was commissioned in 1875, rumors began to circulate that keepers there were going crazy or dying under mysterious circumstances, and the builders themselves allegedly heard Breton cries of, go away, this is my place." Thévenet is located on a rocky islet in the stormy Strait of Ras de Seine. For a long time, the administration could not determine the status of the lighthouse, hell for employees on the high seas, purgatory on a remote island, or paradise on the shore. Because of the small lantern, it was assigned the category of paradise, with only one keeper assigned, and this despite the fact that the conditions there are extremely difficult. Over time, legends began to multiply. Some recalled an unsuccessful exorcism, others described the ghost of a sailor who died of thirst on a rock, and the writer Anatole Labraz popularized these stories. In 1910, the lighthouse was the first in France to be automated. It is believed that no one wanted to work there. Only at the end of the 20th century, historian Jean-Christophe Fichot found out that the archives of the city of Quimper do not confirm either mass madness or mysterious deaths. The gloomy howl is explained by an underwater grotto in which the splash of water mixes with air currents, creating terrifying sounds. And yet, Thévenet still remains the most cursed lighthouse in the country in Breton folklore. Bimini Road. Have you ever heard of Atlantis? In the middle of the 20th century, the soothsayer Edgar Cayce said that the remains of this mythical city would be discovered near Bimini in 1968 to 69. And what do you think? In 1968, off the coast of Paradise Point, researchers discovered 700 meters of neatly stacked limestone blocks that are now called Bimini Road. Archaeologist David Zink claims that these are man-made megaliths. Gavin Menzies, author of 1421, The Year China Discovered America, believes that these are traces of the shipwreck of Chinese sailors. And other scientists say that these are just natural formations. So which one is right? Iron balls at the bottom of the ocean. The German research vessel Sonne, in the waters of the Atlantic, went in search of sea creatures between South America and Africa, but stumbled upon something completely different. At the bottom of the sea, they found dozens, hundreds, thousands of metal balls, each the size of a bowling ball. It was the largest deposit of manganese balls ever found in the Atlantic Ocean. Manganese balls, which often look like pancakes, can be found in every ocean, but the largest ones are usually found in the Pacific. These balls in the Atlantic were special. They were round, which is quite unusual. Scientists think that these balls formed over millions of years, expanding their size by 1 centimeter every million years. The largest of them, 10 million years old, lie at a depth of 5.5 thousand meters. Round, man-made object found at the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. In the depths of Lake Kinneret in Israel, a huge ball with a diameter of about 50 meters and an age of 4,000 years was discovered. Who, when, and why made it is still a mystery. Researchers from Tel Aviv University and Ariel University tirelessly try to unravel this mystery. They even offered a fresh hypothesis that could possibly explain the origin of this mysterious object. After a detailed study using sonar and analysis of bottom sediments, scientists determined that this giant ball, made from large fragments of basalt, is located at a depth of about 12 meters. Previously, scientists believed that this could be the biblical well of Miriam, the sister of the prophet Moses, who helped the Jews survive in the desert. But now researchers are proposing an entirely new idea. Remember the legend of Akkad, the great hunter with a magical bow who was killed by a jealous goddess? This legend says that the father searched for the body of his son for a long time, found it, and buried it in the sea. Not in any sea, but in the Sea of Galilee. Now scientists want to understand what is hidden inside this giant ball. To do this, they are going to conduct underwater research using an ultrasound machine. Kryptonite on Earth. Jadeite, a mineral discovered in 2006 in Serbia, attracted attention due to its striking similarity to kryptonite, the fictional substance that weakens Superman. The chemical composition of jadeite is almost identical to the kryptonite described in the film Superman Returns, including sodium, lithium, borosilicate, and hydroxide. However, unlike its fictional counterpart, jadeite does not contain fluorine, which gave kryptonite its famous green glow. This is why jadeite is white. The discovery of this mineral has attracted great interest from both scientists and science fiction fans, becoming an example of how fiction sometimes intersects with reality. Jadeite was found exclusively in the Jadar River Valley in Serbia and is of interest due to its high lithium content, which is used in the production of batteries. The legendary Golden Horse. Not long ago, the news that the legendary golden horse of King Mithridates Eupator was allegedly found near Anapa, Russia, was spreading across social networks. It is noteworthy that similar messages had already appeared in 2021, turning out to be an April Fool's joke. Now, excavations underway in the area of the village of Anapskaya have once again forced people to discuss this story. During rescue operations at a site for a future kindergarten, archaeologists discovered a burial ground about 2,000 years old. In one of the burials, they found not only human remains, but also horses. In others, horse skeletons, glass and ceramic dishes, various beads, as well as weapons and harnesses. Items, including beads made of amber, carnelian, and faience, indicate the connections of local tribes with the ancient world. Among the finds was a scarab, a symbol of rebirth among the ancient Egyptians. Of particular interest were the glass vessels, which were widespread throughout the periphery of the Roman Empire thanks to the improvement of blowing techniques. Despite the excitement, there is no direct evidence that this is indeed the golden horse of Mithridates. Scientists emphasize that legends easily grow, and the rich burial of a noble person may well acquire fantastic features over time. The cost of building the Cheops Pyramid. We are used to skyscrapers that grow with the help of metal frames and modern technology, but the Cheops Pyramid, built around 2600 BC, still amazes the imagination. Its height reached 146 meters, and only by the 13th century AD did buildings appear higher. To understand how much it would cost to build such a pyramid today, historians and engineers estimated the costs of stone, transportation, salaries, crane rental, and other details. The amount is impressive, about $5 billion. After all, about 2.5 million cubic meters of limestone will be needed, for which you'll have to go to quarries, and for the interior cladding, thousands of tons of granite from Aswan, located hundreds of kilometers away. Add to this designers, geologists, fuel for transporting blocks and giant cranes. In ancient times, everything was done by hand. It is believed that thousands of free workers worked on the construction site, regularly changing teams that received decent food and housing. They moved multi-ton blocks along ramps using wooden rollers and erected a colossal structure that was surprisingly precise in its fit. Even today, it is impossible to fit a knife blade between some of the stones. According to some experts, the construction took from 20 to 27 years. About 2 tons of meat were needed daily to feed the workers, not counting grain, vegetables, and water. It is noteworthy that the project itself was headed by Hemiun, the pharaoh's nephew, who actually acted as the chief architect. It was he who coordinated the work of tens of thousands of people, which in itself speaks of the impressive organization of labor in ancient Egypt. Today, the pyramids remain not only an object of historical heritage, but also a source of eternal questions about what humanity is capable of in order to realize ambitious goals. For the Egyptians, the Pyramid of Cheops was more than just a building. It was a symbol of the pharaoh's power and the highest engineering achievement of its time, which still inspires us to bold achievements. Mysterious stone structure found underwater off Israel's coast. Imagine, a powerful storm covers the Mediterranean coast of Israel, waves wash the shores, and then archaeologists discover a forgotten Neolithic village. Led by Ehud Galili of the University of Haifa and with the help of scientists from Australia's Flinders University, the researchers are opening a window into the past. The inhabitants of this village about 8,000 years ago tried to protect themselves from the advancing water by building a massive stone wall. At that time, the glaciers began to melt, the sea level rose, and the ancient villages, including Tel Hroitz, became victims of flooding. Millennia after the storm, scientists were able to examine the ruins. They found artifacts of the life of ancient people, dishes, tools for the production of olive oil, flint tips, and even the bones of domestic animals. In addition to all this, they found a giant stone wall made of stones weighing up to a ton. It was protection from water for the inhabitants of this village, but even such a wall was only a temporary solution. The waves got closer and closer to the houses, and people were forced to leave their habitual homes. Flooded cemetery found in Egypt. Heraklion is a huge port that arose on the coast of Egypt in the 8th century BC. The place was so popular with Greek merchants that they even built a cemetery here. The secrets of this cemetery were revealed thanks to modern methods of underwater archaeology. In the graves, archaeologists have found a huge number of artifacts, including fine Greek pottery. Near the port, they also discovered many sanctuaries built by the Greeks. But what is even more exciting is the discovery of an antique ship. It sank in one of the channels and hid under a 5-meter layer of clay and silt. Lost legendary Temple of Hercules found off Spanish coast. On the southwestern coast of the Iberian Peninsula, scientists from the University of Seville were able to find the ruins of the Temple of Hercules Gaditon, lost many centuries ago, a majestic structure where people came to worship from the farthest corners of the ancient world. Can you imagine how an ancient mythological hero can become the hero of modern research? Because this is exactly what happened to Hercules, who in Phoenician mythology is known as Melkart, the god and patron of navigation and the city of Tyre. Thanks to LIDAR and digital modeling, scientists can study the underwater world in detail while remaining on land. Ricardo Bellison, one of the researchers at the University of Seville, suggested that the remains of a majestic temple may be hidden at the mouth of the shallow channel Cano de Sancti Petri. Marble and bronze sculptures of Roman emperors have been found here, as well as figurines from the Phoenician period, many of which can be seen today in the Museum of Cadiz. Scientists were able to identify a rectangular area measuring 300 by 150 meters, where the ruins of the temple itself may be hidden. Copper object. This mysterious artifact made from a single piece of copper alloy puzzles researchers and collectors. The object, rather crudely cast with visible defects, has a head in the shape of a rectangular prism which narrows on all sides to a sharp edge. The handle, smoothly rounded at the end, shows no traces of blows, which indicates that it was not used for striking in the usual sense. Interestingly, the edges of the head previously had parallel lines and scratches that have worn off over time. This may indicate repeated use of the artifact, possibly in the process of cutting, grinding, or scraping. The estimated dating of the artifact varies between 5,000 and 10,000 years, but the exact origin remains unclear. Some researchers hypothesize that this object could have been used for ritual purposes or as part of an unknown technological device. Alternative history proponents believe that such artifacts could have been part of ancient, highly advanced tools created using technology beyond the capabilities of ancient metallurgists. Melted steps. The stairs at the Temple of Hathor in Dendera raise many questions among archaeologists and researchers. These steps, located in one of the best-preserved temples of ancient Egypt, look as if they were exposed to incredibly high temperatures, which could have led to their deformation and partial melting. The surface of the steps shows unusual bends and recessed areas that are not typical for the normal wear of stone structures. There are various theories to explain this phenomenon. One hypothesis suggests that the steps could have been damaged as a result of some unknown thermal impact, for example, ritual fires or processes associated with ancient technologies. Another theory points to possible construction errors. If the stones for the steps were formed directly on site from a liquid solution, then the interruption of the hardening process could have led to an irregular shape and softness of the material. Scientists are still studying this phenomenon, adding another mystery to the rich heritage of ancient Egypt. The risen Telamon. This unique Atlantean from the Temple of Zeus in the ancient city of Agrigento in Sicily is one of the most impressive examples of monumental sculpture of the 5th century BC. The temple, built in the Doric style, was considered one of the largest temples of the ancient world, and its architecture reflected the power of Greek civilization. The telamons, which acted as supports, had a symbolic meaning depicting the titanic force supporting the sky or the enormous weight of an architectural structure. These giant statues, about 7.5 meters high, were impressive both in their detail and size. One of the telamons was restored and installed in its original place, demonstrating the complexity of the engineering and artistic solutions of the ancient masters. But there are myths and mysteries surrounding the Atlanteans. Some researchers believe that the images of the Titans could reflect ancient myths about the confrontation between the gods and giants, and their position in the temple symbolized their conquest. Others believe that such sizes and shapes could have been used as images of extraterrestrial beings, which the ancient inhabitants believed in. Atlantis at the bottom of the Caribbean. June 5th, 8,500 years ago, time 1 p.m. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a mountain-sized asteroid crashes into the Earth. Boom! And its 5 billion tons heat the waters of the Atlantic to a boil. According to one scientist from Germany, this is how the death of Atlantis happened. A lost civilization, which they say was flooded by waves of a giant shaft as high as Mount Everest. The crash site is now called the Bermuda Triangle. Previously, scientists thought that Atlantis was somewhere in the Caribbean near the island of Bimini. They said that the Atlanteans were so smart that they even knew how to create crystals of fire for energy. But it seems that one of these crystals exploded and led to the death of civilization. Skeptics, of course, will say that all this is nonsense. But what about the numerous underwater finds, such as strange pyramids and marble buildings? Ancient tunnels found near Murmansk. Hidden under the city of Murmansk in Russia is a whole system of ancient tunnels. In winter, the entrance to the tunnels turns into a crystal ice kingdom. Rumor has it that these catacombs stretch for tens of kilometers and the height of the ceilings in them reaches up to 12 meters. And what is interesting, they have been known for a long time. They are mentioned even in the text of the 16th century. These tunnels, according to legend, belong to the ancient magical people of the Chakli. They knew all the secrets of the land and the extraction of valuable stones, helped the locals, and, according to rumors, disappeared underground without accepting the new rules of life. Found the frequency at which people hear underwater as well as seals. Danish researchers believe that people whose ears were adapted to life on land in the course of evolution are still able to hear quite well underwater. Back in the 1950s, scientists were trying to figure out how our auditory perception works underwater. Even U.S. Army doctors have studied the effects of underwater explosions on divers' hearing. Both humans and marine mammals took part in the new experiment, and Danish scientists found that the average human hearing threshold underwater is 71 dB at a frequency of 500 Hz. This is 26 dB lower than previous studies have shown. This confirmed that people hear much better underwater than previously thought, and our hearing can be compared with the hearing of such aquatic inhabitants as cormorants and seals. For example, seals and dolphins are able to hear underwater sounds that are not picked up by the human ear. Previously, scientists assumed that we hear underwater due to bone conduction of sound, but new results show that underwater sound is amplified primarily by resonance in the air chamber of the middle ear. The oldest map of the world has been deciphered. The British Museum has revealed the secret of one of the oldest maps of the world, a clay tablet from Babylon, created about 3,000 years ago. The so-called Imago Mundi, found in the city of Abu Haba, Sipar, in Iraq, has been kept in the museum's collection since 1882. The tablet depicts a simplified whole world as imagined by the inhabitants of Mesopotamia. The center is occupied by a rectangle of the Euphrates River. Around it are circles and rectangles denoting cities, including Babylon. Everything is surrounded by a bitter river, the salty waters of the Persian Gulf, and the Mediterranean Sea. According to cuneiform specialist Irving Finkel, this is a schematic reflection of the space where people lived and died, and beyond it, according to the tablet, there were 8 remote regions. The Akkadian text on the top and back of the map tells the story of the creation of the world and recounts one version of the story of the Great Flood. According to it, around 1800 BC, God commanded King Utnapishtim to build an ark, the remains of which were supposedly left behind a bitter river on a mountainside. A missing fragment of the tablet discovered in 1995 helped scientists decipher the story more accurately. In addition, the Babylonian god Marduk is mentioned, as well as fantastic creatures such as the Scorpion Man and the lion-headed bird Anzu, confirming the rich mythological world of the Babylonians. Rebitters and bioducks. If it seems that the sound anomalies associated with marine UFOs were recorded only by American sailors, then this is not so. Soviet submariners also encountered similar mysterious phenomena. In the 1970s, the crews of Soviet nuclear submarines detected strange sounds reminiscent of the croaking of frogs, which quickly spread in the waters of the North Atlantic, especially in areas controlled by NATO. These sounds were so unusual that they became the subject of numerous discussions and hypotheses. The sounds recorded by the acoustics of Soviet submarines almost always accompanied them and moved at an amazing speed, up to 150 knots. However, active sonar did not record any objects that could be the source of these noises. It was assumed that these sounds came from something too small to detect or were even living creatures. For several years, scientists tried to figure out the nature of these strange rebitters, putting forward various theories, from unexplored phenomena occurring in submarine nuclear reactors to vibrations at the boundary of water layers with different temperatures and salinities. However, the Soviet Academy of Sciences put forward a more likely explanation. The sounds were biological in nature and could come from whales or unknown deep-sea mollusks. Submariners, in turn, did not agree with this, believing that the rebitters were too different from any known sea creatures. Over time, a more realistic version appeared, proposed by skeptics. According to this theory, the submariners mistook the sounds of active buoys dropped from NATO anti-submarine aircraft for the rebitting. These devices, equipped with water-filled power sources, could produce noises similar to croaking. This version explains why rebitters were most often recorded in areas of active NATO patrols and why this anomaly disappeared after the collapse of the USSR. Sailors of the Royal Navy of Great Britain, in turn, recorded similar noises, which they called bioducks, from the English onomatopoeia of quacking. These sounds were recorded in the waters around Australia, where in the 1960s, the most important nuclear testing grounds for the British fleet were located. Since patrols in these waters by the USSR or the USA were unlikely, the British also initially associated these sounds with marine life. It took scientists more than 50 years to establish the source of the bioducks. It turned out that the strange sounds are made by southern minke whales, whales that, before a deep dive, unexpectedly make this sound. Discovery rewrites alcohol history. The process of distilling alcohol goes back much further than previously thought. New excavations at the tomb of Liu He, the 9th emperor of the Western Han Dynasty, have revealed that distillation was already known in China 2,000 years ago. Scientists have found a bronze vessel called a heavenly pot, which served as a key part of a wine distillation device. Previously, historical texts only pointed to the emergence of such technologies during the Yuan dynasty, that is, 1,000 years later. Despite his short reign, Liu He left behind an impressive legacy. In addition to the distiller itself, the oldest painting of Confucius was found in his tomb, as well as thousands of pieces of armor made of iron, copper, and lacquered leather. All this testifies to the high level of craftsmanship of the Western Han era. An experiment with a replica of the bronze vessel showed a distillation efficiency of over 70% while preserving the taste and aroma of the drink. Initially thought to have been used for perfume essences or medicine, it is now clear that its primary purpose was alcohol production. The findings provide insight into the evolution of brewing and alcohol practices, complementing historical records and revealing the potential of early Chinese inventors. Discovered evidence of a global catastrophe 12,800 years ago. Archaeologists have made an incredible discovery in northern Syria and at the bottom of Lake Assad. They found the remains of houses, tools, and even food that are about 12,800 years old. And that's not all. Next to the finds, the remains of meteorites and melted glass were found. Moreover, similar findings were made in other countries. But what is interesting, in the official history there is no mention of a large-scale bombardment of the Earth by meteorites. An analysis of these finds suggests that about 12,000 years ago, a huge number of meteorites hit the Earth, covering the Atlantic Ocean, Syria, India, and Antarctica. And all this time, the traces of this cosmic storm were hidden in the legends of different peoples and under the layer of Earth. Sunken and underground cities, tunnels, and traces of civilizations. These finds are scattered all over the world. What is this? Antediluvian settlements of our ancestors? Or did there exist an underwater super-civilization? What technologies could we lose along with the underwater settlers? Everything points to the fact that in the near future, the world will again have to rewrite the history of mankind. This discovery changed archaeology. The 600-year-old Nebra sky disk remains one of the most enigmatic archaeological finds. Inscribed on the UNESCO Memory of the World Register in 2013, this artifact is striking in its design and complex manufacturing technology. Recent research conducted in Germany has shown that the disk was made using a 10-stage hot forging process. Each stage involved heating the metal to 700 degrees Celsius and stress-relieving treatment. This data was obtained using modern techniques such as X-ray spectroscopy and microstructural analysis. Attempts to reproduce the technology have shown that the ancient original methods were superior to modern processing methods. The Nebra sky disk is not only a unique artifact but also proof of the advanced metallurgy knowledge of the time. Mysterious mask. A strange iridium artifact found in Florida challenges traditional ideas about ancient civilizations. According to researchers, this object is 12,000 years old and is made of iridium, a metal that is extremely rare on Earth and most often found in meteorites. The artifact is striking in its delicacy and skillful processing, which suggests that the ancient craftsmen had technologies that were significantly ahead of their time. An image is engraved on the surface of the object, reminiscent of the deity Viracocha, known in the Inca culture as the creator of all things. According to legend, Viracocha came from Lake Titicaca, bringing light and knowledge. This image may be evidence of a connection between ancient peoples and an extraterrestrial civilization, which would explain the use of rare meteorite material to create this artifact. Historians believe that this object was stolen by Spanish conquistadors in 1715 and taken away on the ship La Concepcion. The ship sank in a storm, leaving much of its cargo, including other artifacts, on the ocean floor. The mask washed up on the beach and is believed by experts to be just a small part of the $5 billion lost treasure. A mysterious secret in the garden. Archaeologists have discovered 123 ancient bodies buried in a vertical shaft near Leicester Cathedral. The find, dating back to the 12th century, includes the remains of men, women, and children and raises many questions. None of the skeletons showed signs of violent death, which points to two possible causes of the tragedy: famine or epidemic. The shaft was found during excavations that began after the discovery of the remains of King Richard III in 2012. The new discovery sheds light on the dark pages of Leicester's history, where more than 1,200 burials covering a period of more than 850 years have previously been found. According to archaeologist Matthew Morris from the University of Leicester, radiocarbon dating rules out a connection between the found bodies and the plague of the 14th century, known as the Black Death. The bodies date back to the 12th century, forcing researchers to wonder about the nature of the catastrophe that devastated the area. Interestingly, all the bodies were wrapped in shrouds but had no clothing or jewelry. This indicates that the dead did not die suddenly on the streets, but their bodies were most likely collected in an organized manner and brought to the mine in carts. Archaeologists estimate that the bodies found represent about 5% of the population at that time. Mass graves from that period are not uncommon in England, but this mine turned out to be the largest in the region. Such finds help to better understand the impact of epidemics and famines, which could wipe out large parts of the population in a short period of time. Mirror's Diary. In 2013, archaeologists Pierre Tallet and Gregory Marouard discovered papyrus scrolls at the site of an ancient harbor on the Red Sea coast, which are the oldest known documents. Dating back to the 27th year of Khufu's reign, these records were created by workers directly involved in the construction of the pyramid. Among them are ledgers describing the distribution of resources: bread, beer, grain, and meat to feed 20,000 workers. An even more unique find was the diary of Inspector Mirror, who led a team of 200 people. The diary describes in detail the process of transporting limestone blocks from the quarries of Tura to Giza. These blocks used to clad the pyramid were transported along the Nile in wooden boats during the annual flood. Each boat could hold up to 80 tons of stone, and Mirror's crew managed to make 2 or 3 trips per 10-day week, transporting around 1,000 blocks per season. Particularly notable is the mention of the noble Ankaf, Khufu's half-brother, who oversaw the construction of the pyramid. The diary also records for the first time the original name of the pyramid, Akhet Khufu, which translates as Horizon of Khufu. These records confirm the existence of a complex infrastructure, including canals, harbors, and storage facilities. The workers not only transported materials, but also built ports and managed resources. The archives were likely buried in Wadi al-Jarf after Khufu's death, when work was suspended. Egyptologists consider these discoveries key to understanding how the ancient Egyptians were able to build some of the most impressive structures in human history. Life on Saturn's moon. Now let's move on to space. While Boeing Starliner astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams continue to sadly wait to return to Earth in February, NASA is busy preparing for future missions. In 2028, the Dragonfly spacecraft is scheduled to launch to Titan, a moon of Saturn that scientists believe may hold incredible secrets. Dragonfly is expected to reach Titan in 2034. Recent research has shown that Titan may have a warm ocean beneath its thick icy shell, creating conditions for life to emerge. Moreover, under the ice, up to 10 kilometers thick, there may be an atmosphere, rivers, and seas, likely made of hydrocarbons such as methane and ethane. Dragonfly will be an important step in exploring extraterrestrial oceans and searching for alien life beyond Earth. Elongated skulls. The mystery of the elongated skulls of Paracas continues to stir heated debate among scientists and researchers. These elongated skulls, discovered by archaeologist Julio Tello in 1928 on the Paracas Peninsula in Peru, date back approximately 3,000 years. The skulls are unusually shaped, and although similar finds have been found all over the world, from Rome to the Caucasus, the Paracas skulls are particularly surprising. It is believed that the elongated shape of the skulls was the result of deliberate manipulation, such as tying special bands or boards around the heads of infants. This process, known as cranial deformation, was common among many ancient cultures. Even today, it is practiced by some African tribes. However, it remains a mystery what exactly motivated people everywhere to engage in this practice. One popular hypothesis is that people sought to imitate the gods or guests from heaven who, according to legend, had elongated heads. Another version says that such a shape of the skull could enhance the perception of cosmic energy, which allegedly contributed to spiritual or intellectual development. The peculiarity of the Paracas skulls lies not only in their shape, but also in their volume and structure. Research shows that the volume of the skull is larger than that of ordinary people, and the structure of the bones is different. These anomalies give rise to theories about the extraterrestrial origin of the owners of such skulls. The skulls may belong to representatives of another race or hybrid creatures about which we know little yet. Long before Malevich. Alphonse Allais, a French writer, journalist, and master of black humor, was one of the first artists to use monochrome painting to convey ideas with ironic and conceptual overtones. His 1893 painting, Battle of Negroes in a Dark Cave in the Dead of Night, is a completely black rectangle. Although it was created as a joke, the painting became a precursor to the works of 20th century conceptualists, including Kazimir Malevich's famous Black Square. The irony of the painting's title fully conveys the mood of Alai, who probably wanted to demonstrate not only his wit, but also the absurdity of some aspects of the art of his time. This approach can be seen in his other works, for example, the white canvas entitled First Communion of Anemic Girls in the Snowy Season, or the gray drunk dance in the fog. Each of these works is not just a provocation, but an attempt to make the viewer think and smile. A mystery in the Amazon jungle. Padre Carlos Crespi Croce, an Italian missionary who spent most of his life serving in Ecuador, became one of the most enigmatic figures of the 20th century thanks to his extraordinary collection of artifacts. Working with the Shuar tribes in the Ecuadorian jungle, he acquired many ancient objects that some researchers believed could be evidence of an ancient, highly advanced civilization, and perhaps even contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. Crespi's collection included strange metal plates engraved with symbols reminiscent of ancient writing, figurines depicting creatures with unusual features, and objects that many described as technologically sophisticated. Of particular intrigue were metal reliefs depicting creatures with elongated skulls, stars, and scenes reminiscent of space travel. Interestingly, there were no known civilizations in the region that could produce such complex items. Rumors about the collection spread after some visitors, including researchers, claimed to see evidence of extraterrestrial influence in it. Some of the artifacts were said to be made of metals that could not be identified. Crespi, however, was not looking for fame. He claimed to accept these items from local tribes in exchange for aid and food. The collection's connection to extraterrestrial civilizations becomes even more interesting when considering the mystery of the tunnels beneath Ecuador that are the subject of legend. The tunnels, known as the Teos system, are said to contain a library of metal books. Some theorists suggest that these tunnels were a base for an ancient race, possibly of extraterrestrial origin. The Crespi collection could have been part of these treasures. Unfortunately, after the death of Padre Crespi in 1982, the collection was destroyed by fire or stolen, and its fate remains unclear. What do you think? Could a missionary become the custodian of traces of an ancient space civilization hidden in the Amazon jungle? Secret underground base. While studying the Greenland ice sheets, NASA scientists made an unexpected discovery. They found the remains of an abandoned Cold War military base called Camp Century. This city under the ice was part of the secret American project Iceworm. The base was conceived as a network of tunnels that could serve as a place to house intercontinental nuclear missiles aimed at the Soviet Union. Using a Gulfstream 3 research aircraft with radar equipment, NASA scientists studied the depth of the ice sheet and the structure of the bedrock. In the images, they saw the remains of tunnels and structures that were preserved in the thickness of the ice. Camp Century was built in 1959 and included a network of 21 tunnels with a total length of about 3 kilometers. However, the project was abandoned in 1967 due to high costs and the instability of the ice sheet. The U.S. military originally planned to create a network of tunnels more than 4,000 kilometers long to accommodate the Minuteman IRBM missiles, but the ice sheet proved too complex to implement such ambitious plans. Today, the melting of Greenland's glaciers is gradually revealing the remains of the base, including fuel and pollutant burial sites. This city under the ice is yet another example of how military ambitions are intertwined with scientific research and the environmental challenges of our time. An artifact that must return home. Bust of Nefertiti, created around 1345 BC, remains one of the most famous archaeological finds and the subject of endless debate. Discovered on December 6, 1912 by German Egyptologist Ludwig Borchardt in the workshop of the sculptor Thutmose, the bust is a 47-centimeter, 18-inch figure made of limestone and plaster, painted in bright colors. Borchardt described the find as absolutely exceptional, but its history quickly became overgrown with controversy over ownership and the ethics of removing it from the country. The excavations took place in the ancient city of Akhetaten, modern Tel El Amarna, the capital of the pharaoh Akhenaten, who introduced the world's first monotheistic religion, the worship of the god Aton. The work was financed by wealthy collector James Simon. When the bust was found, it immediately attracted attention. However, Borchardt, fearing that the Egyptian authorities might keep the find for themselves, allegedly provided them with unimpressive photographs of the artifact and kept it in semi-darkness to diminish its significance. After the finds were divided, the bust was taken to Germany, as was the custom at the time. It ended up in Berlin and was donated to the state museums in 1920. Since then, the bust has rarely left Germany, except for a temporary move to the salt mines of Thuringia for safekeeping during World War II. Egypt has repeatedly claimed that the bust was illegally removed. In 1929, a possible return was discussed, but Adolf Hitler, delighted with the artifact, forbade its return. Modern Egyptian authorities, including the renowned archaeologist Zahi Hawass, continue to demand the repatriation of the bust, claiming that the deal was not fair. Bees and honey. The Minoan bees is a gold pendant found in 1917 during excavations of an ancient Minoan palace in Malea, Crete. This unique artifact dates back to around 1700 BC, but some researchers suggest that it may be much older. The pendant depicts two bees, joined at the base, holding a drop of honey, a symbol of fertility and vitality. Surrounded by fine chains and decorations, the artifact demonstrates an incredibly high level of craftsmanship. Details such as the texture of the wings, the symmetry of the shapes, and the precision of the connections amaze even modern jewelers. The technique of making the pendant, which involves the use of complex soldering and filigree, raises the question for historians. Could Bronze Age craftsmen have had such advanced technology? Bees in Minoan culture were associated with immortality, the soul, and rebirth. Perhaps the Minoan bees served as an amulet to protect the owner or were a ritual object associated with the worship of fertility goddesses. Some researchers even hypothesize that ancient civilizations had knowledge that could have been lost or, more daringly, borrowed from contacts with some more advanced cultures. Mystical figurines. These unusual figurines from the ancient Mexican city of Teotihuacan are rare examples of Aztec art and worldview. Found in 1933 in the Metepec area by an American anthropologist, the figurines depict men and women with opening hollow torsos. Inside are smaller figurines or objects, which causes much debate about their meaning and purpose. Often such figurines are called masters due to their peculiar content. The cavity in the chest area is symbolically closed by a door, which hints at hidden knowledge, a secret meaning, or the concept of the inner self. Perhaps these figurines embody the philosophical concept of Nahual, an inner spirit or companion that accompanied a person in his spiritual quest and on his life's journey. Other interpretations suggest a connection between the figurines and symbols of fertility, education, or spiritual growth. They may have represented social or religious roles, warrior, ruler, merchant, or woman from the elite strata of Teotihuacan society. The fine detailing and the ability to open and close the figurines speaks to the high level of craftsmanship of their creators. This unique design may have symbolized the interaction between the inner and outer worlds, as well as the desire to reveal hidden truths about the nature of man and the world. Queen Cleopatra VII. Archaeologists have discovered a white marble statue of a woman wearing a royal crown in Egypt, possibly depicting the famous Queen Cleopatra VII. The find was made under the walls of the ancient temple of Taposiris Magna in the western part of Alexandria. In addition, excavations have revealed funerary and meteorological artifacts, as well as the remains of a temple and tunnels leading from Lake Mariot to the Mediterranean Sea. The statue was found together with a limestone bust of the king decorated with a nemes, a striped headdress traditional for pharaohs. Archaeologists also found about 350 coins depicting Cleopatra VII, bronze figurines, a set of ceramics, lamps, vessels for storing food and cosmetics, an amulet with the inscription, "The Justice of Ra has risen," and a bronze ring dedicated to the goddess Hathor. The artifacts allowed the temple to be dated to the end of the Hellenistic period and its walls to the 1st century BC. Researchers suggest that the statue of a woman could belong to Cleopatra VII, known for her relationships with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. However, not everyone agrees with this version. Former Egyptian Antiquities Minister Zahi Hawass said that the style of the sculpture indicates a Roman origin and not Egyptian, as was customary during Cleopatra's life. Some experts believe that the bust probably depicts a princess of a later era. Stone giants in Kazakhstan. The Valley of Balls on the Mangistau Peninsula in Kazakhstan is a mysterious place that amazes tourists and scientists with its unusual landscape. There are huge stone balls scattered across the steppes and slopes. Some of them are several meters in diameter, which makes them especially impressive. One of the most common hypotheses for the appearance of these unusual formations is a natural phenomenon associated with geological processes. Researchers believe that the balls could have formed as a result of so-called concretion processes. This occurs when mineral particles settling from water begin to concentrate around a solid core, such as an organic residue or a stone particle. Over time, these formations increase, taking on an almost perfect spherical shape. There is also a theory that the balls are associated with tectonic activity. During faults in the Earth's crust, electrical discharges are released, which can contribute to the formation of spherical objects in layers of sedimentary rocks. Some scientists hypothesize the biogenic origin of the balls. They suggest that their core could have been colonies of ancient microorganisms or plankton that existed millions of years ago in warm water bodies. When the waters receded, the balls appeared on the surface where further erosion gave them a finished look. Visually, the Valley of Balls resembles scenes from science fiction films. These stone giants, surrounded by the harsh nature of Mangistau, create an almost unearthly atmosphere, beckoning with its mystery. The Kigums Incident. This photo, often referred to as the Kigums Incident, is said to depict the site of an alleged UFO crash in a forest, which was rumored to have occurred in the Soviet Union in the 1960s. According to popular theories, the incident was kept strictly secret, and the area around the discovery was immediately cordoned off by the military. The object was said to be a metal disc, about 10 meters in diameter, with a smooth surface covered in strange symbols resembling hieroglyphs. Local eyewitnesses, who are now almost impossible to find, claimed that not only strange debris was observed at the crash site, but also corporeal remains that were described as humanoid but not human. In the context of the Cold War, such events were carefully covered up to avoid mass panic or leaks of information about supposed technologies that could give an advantage in the arms race. Conspiracy theorists claim that the crash technology could have been studied and partly used in subsequent military developments. What makes this story even more mysterious are the coincidences with other cases of alleged UFO crashes, such as Roswell in the United States. This has given rise to the hypothesis that such events are part of a global interaction between governments and extraterrestrial civilizations, with each side trying to unravel the secrets of the guests' technology. The veracity of the incident remains in question, but the photographs and descriptions continue to attract the attention of those looking for evidence of an alien presence on Earth. Bronze military diploma. In the ancient city of Pire, located in the southeastern Turkish province of Adıyaman, archaeologists have made a unique discovery: a bronze military diploma dating back about 2,000 years. Pire, one of the 5 largest cities of the Kingdom of Commagene, retained its importance during the Roman period. Excavations in this ancient city began in 2001 and continue intermittently. During the work, a Roman fountain, large stone blocks, aqueducts, and architectural structures were discovered. Recently, during the final stage of excavations, a bronze plate with an inscription in Latin was found, which turned out to be a military diploma dated to 123 AD, the reign of Emperor Hadrian. The translation of the text by Professor Mustafa Hamdi Sayar confirmed that the diploma belonged to a soldier named Calcilius Anticus, who served in Syria for 20 years. For his service, he received Roman citizenship and the right to marry. Such diplomas were issued in large numbers, about 100,000 copies. However, most of them were melted down, and only about 800 have survived to this day. Of these, more than 650 have already been studied. The found diploma became an important addition to this rare collection. Volgograd discs. Mysterious stone discs were discovered on the Medveditskaya Ridge in the Volgograd region, Russia, known for its anomalous zones. The find consisted of 6 large round objects, the largest of which reaches 4 meters in diameter. Researchers claim that the structure of the discs is amazing. Their composition includes tungsten, a rare and refractory metal used in modern industry and space technology. Ufologists have suggested that these strange objects could be the remains of ancient spaceships that fell to Earth thousands of years ago and eventually turned into stone. Such finds, reminiscent of flying saucers, only fuel theories about ancient aliens visiting our planet. An alternative hypothesis explains the origin of the disks by natural processes of erosion and concretion. Geologists believe that stone formations could have arisen due to high pressure and mineral deposition over millions of years. However, the perfect round shape and the presence of tungsten remain unexplained to this day. The mysterious disappearance of an Inuit village. In November 1930, a hunter named Joe LaBelle, well known among the local Inuit tribes, went to a small fishing village on the shores of Lake Anjikuni in northern Canada. The village was known for its hospitality, and LaBelle expected to spend the night there, warm up, and communicate with the locals. However, to his surprise, he found the village completely empty. All the dwellings were in their places. Personal belongings, tools, and even prepared food remained in the houses, but there were no people anywhere. The hunter's greatest horror was caused by the dogs. Local sled dogs, abandoned on a leash, lay dead from hunger. This was especially strange since the Inuit always treated their dogs with great respect because they were indispensable for survival in the harsh climate. There were no signs of a fight, robbery, or natural disasters in the village. It looked as if the people had disappeared in an instant. The most mystical thing about this story is the disappearance of bodies from the graves. All the graves in the local cemetery were opened, and the remains of the deceased were gone. Joe LaBelle contacted the police, and soon a search operation began. However, neither the bodies nor any traces of the missing people were ever found. The story became public, and speculation and rumors began. Locals claimed that shortly before the disappearance of the village, they saw strange glowing lights in the sky that hovered over the lake. These reports gave rise to many theories, including the intervention of extraterrestrial forces. There are also suggestions about a mass migration of residents, perhaps due to a lack of resources or the impact of a mysterious epidemic. However, no traces of a mass exodus were found. Some associate this case with the Inuit myths about the Tunit spirits, an ancient people who, according to legend, could take people to the spirit world. Other explanations include mysterious atmospheric phenomena or even time portals. Almost a century later, the disappearance of the Inuit from the village of Anjikuni remains one of the strangest and most inexplicable mysteries in Canadian history, one that still excites researchers and mysticists today. The Shroud of Turin and the UFO connection. This mysterious Christian relic is of interest not only to religious communities, but also to paranormal researchers and ufologists. This 4-meter-long linen cloth contains the imprint of a human body, supposedly crucified, which is believed to be associated with Jesus Christ. The relic is kept in the Turin Cathedral and has caused endless debate about its authenticity. Scientifically, radiocarbon dating indicates its medieval origin, but there are theories linking it to divine or even extraterrestrial intervention. The uniqueness of the image on the shroud is difficult to explain. It was not painted with a brush, but looks like an imprint resembling a photographic negative, which is incredible for the technology of that time. The connection with UFOs and alien theories arises from the hypothesis that the shroud could be a product of highly developed technology. Ufologists claim that the process of creating this imprint could be associated with the release of powerful energy or a light pulse, reminiscent of modern laser technology. Some believe that the resurrection of Jesus, accompanied by a miraculous phenomenon, could be the result of the intervention of an extraterrestrial civilization that passed on its knowledge to humanity. However, these are just theories. Fragment of a granite device. A granite artifact from Japan with mysterious patterns still raises many questions among scientists and researchers. This stone, found near ancient structures, puzzles with its unusual shape and precision of manufacture. Numerous depressions and lines are visible on its surface, which connect into a complex pattern, the meaning of which remains unknown. The official version suggests that the stone could have been part of a decorative element of a palace or temple. However, this hypothesis raises doubts, given the precision and symmetry of the patterns. Granite is an extremely hard material, and its processing requires complex tools that were unlikely to be available to ancient craftsmen. Even more questions arise about the technology for creating such smooth and deep depressions in such a labor-intensive material. The mystery is intensified by suggestions that the found artifact may be just a fragment of a larger structure. If its original appearance is restored, it may be possible to unravel its hidden purpose. Some alternative theories link the artifact to ancient technologies that were lost or brought in by a more advanced civilization, perhaps even of extraterrestrial origin. The skillfully executed elements on the granite could have served as part of some mechanism, a device for collecting or concentrating energy. This find reminds us of how many secrets our history holds and opens up space for fantasy and new research. Gate of the Sun. One of the most mysterious artifacts of the ancient city of Tiwanaku in Bolivia, located near the sacred Lake Titicaca. This massive stone arch, carved from a single block of andesite, weighs about 10 tons and is believed to date back to the 1st millennium AD. Despite its ruined state, the Gate of the Sun continues to amaze researchers and attract supporters of theories about alien influence on ancient civilizations. The most striking thing is the carved patterns and images on the arch. In the center is a mysterious deity with rays around his head, which resembles a sun god or an entity that came from the sky. Some researchers claim that the patterns around him represent a complex calendar, and the symbols on the panels may be encrypted information about astronomical phenomena or star maps. The connection with UFOs is reinforced by the legends of local peoples who claim that their ancestors communicated with gods who descended from the sky. Some ufologists see images of spacecraft or technology in the symbolism of the Gate of the Sun. Moreover, the mysterious precision of the gate's creation, its resistance to time and erosion, and the impossibility of explaining its function point to the intervention of extraterrestrial intelligence. Kensington Rune Stone. This is one of the most mysterious archaeological finds in the United States. In 1898, farmer Olaf Oman discovered a rectangular slab of sedimentary stone in Minnesota. Runic symbols are engraved on the surface of the stone, which describe a Scandinavian expedition to North America in 1362, 130 years before Christopher Columbus's voyage. The text on the stone tells of a group of 30 explorers, Norwegians and Swedes, who allegedly moved deeper into the continent until some of them were killed. The contents of the runic inscriptions are the subject of much debate among historians and linguists. Some consider the stone a 19th century forgery, while others see it as confirmation of an early Scandinavian presence in America. The connection to UFOs and an extraterrestrial past arises from questions about the origins of the technology that allowed such precise runic symbols to be carved into solid stone, as well as the Scandinavians' knowledge of the continent. Ufologists claim that Scandinavian myths about gods from the sky who brought light and knowledge echo theories about ancient civilizations' contact with extraterrestrial intelligence. Perhaps the Vikings who sailed through uncharted seas and lands could have made contact with aliens or received clues for their expeditions. Santa Claus's grave. Archaeologists have discovered a sarcophagus in Turkey that may be the tomb of St. Nicholas, the prototype of Santa Claus. The find was made in the Church of St. Nicholas in Dimre, Antalya, during excavations that have been ongoing since 1989. The burial was found in an extension next to the temple. The sarcophagus, about 2 meters long, is made of local limestone. It was partially buried in the ground to a depth of 2 meters. Its design, with a raised, sloping lid, resembles other tombs in the region. Scientists believe that the church was built on the burial site of St. Nicholas the Wonderworker, Archbishop of Myra, known for his good deeds. It was his generosity and secret gifts that became the basis for the legends about Santa Claus. Babylon's vision of Earth and beyond. The Babylonian world map, or Imago Mundi, is one of the oldest known maps, dating back to around the 8th century BC. The clay tablet depicts the ancient Babylonians' view of the Earth. The center of the map depicts Babylon, located on the Euphrates River. The map is surrounded by important geographic features: Susa to the south, Urartu to the northeast, and Haban to the northwest. Beyond this area are triangular regions that researchers believe represent unknown lands or mountainous regions. The map is surrounded by a salt river called the Bitter River, which they believe ran across the entire planet. Mythical inscriptions mentioning the creation of land and sea by the god Marduk are also noteworthy, making the map not only a geographic but also a cosmological artifact. The UFO connection comes from the triangular regions beyond the map. Some researchers believe that the ancient inhabitants of Babylon tried to depict unknown lands, which they associated with divine or extraterrestrial beings. They were part of the crucifixion story. An ancient Georgian painting depicting the crucifixion of Jesus Christ has drawn attention to a mysterious object that resembles a UFO. In the background behind the cross is an object that looks like a giant button with legs. One of the characters in the painting even points at it with his hand, which seems to be a deliberate emphasis by the artist. The origin of the painting and the name of its author remain unknown, although it is believed that the image was created about 1,000 years ago in the 11th century. The church where the painting is located dates back even earlier, to the 5th century, although the current building was erected between 1010 and 1029. Some believe that the object could represent guardian angels, although this contradicts traditional depictions of angels of that era who were usually depicted with wings. Others suggest that the artist may have intentionally depicted something resembling flying saucers as part of a larger symbolism, perhaps an allegory or an element of religious myth that has not survived into modern interpretations. The painting continues to generate interest and controversy, offering a unique perspective on the combination of religious art and unexplained symbols that remain a mystery to this day. Message from aliens. Easter Island, lost in the South Pacific Ocean, became famous for its giant stone statues, moai, and mysterious tablets with rongorongo writing. These ancient tablets, covered with strange hieroglyphs, still remain one of the greatest archaeological mysteries. Scientists believe that rongorongo is the writing of the Rapa Nui civilization, which flourished on the island until the 18th century. The story of their discovery begins in 1864 when the French missionary Eugene Araud first noticed wooden tablets covered with unusual signs. The tablets were made of toramira wood, which grows on the island, and were found in almost every home. However, most of these artifacts soon disappeared due to internecine wars and destruction. About 25 tablets have survived, and their study revealed a unique writing style reminiscent of inverted boustrophedon. This method of writing signs was previously found only among the Incas. The tablets depict figures of animals, plants, and anthropomorphic creatures. Scientists assume that these symbols could have been used to record rituals and myths. Of particular interest are the similarities between rongorongo and other ancient scripts. Some signs resemble the hieroglyphs of ancient Egypt, India, as well as the symbols of the Harappan civilization that flourished in the Indus Valley. Parallels were even drawn with the writings of the Kuna Indians from Central America and the drawings on the island of Sumatra. This gives rise to theories about possible connections between ancient cultures across the ocean. Attempts to decipher rongorongo are still ongoing, but it has not yet been possible to fully understand these writings. One version is the description of rituals with sacrifices to the gods. Another hypothesis, more fantastic, suggests an extraterrestrial origin of these signs, hinting at contact with alien civilizations. Otherwise, how could people living on different continents have similar writing in those distant times? And in our time, having a huge amount of communication with each other through phones, satellites, and the internet, we speak different languages. The mystery of rongorongo remains unsolved, but its study continues to inspire scientists and enthusiasts around the world. Message to aliens. The golden record attached to the Voyager spacecraft is a unique message from humanity to another civilization. Launched in 1977, the Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 spacecraft have become not only important instruments for exploring the solar system, but also symbols of humanity's desire to find contact with intelligent life beyond Earth. The record contains greetings in 55 languages, including ancient ones, music by great composers, sounds of nature, the sound of the wind, the splash of waves, the singing of birds, and even the beating of the human heart. It also contains 100 images representing the daily life of people, animals, architecture, and scientific achievements. To help aliens decipher the contents, the cover of the disc is engraved with instructions and a diagram of the location of the Earth relative to pulsars in our galaxy. This record is a kind of cosmic ambassador addressed not only to potential alien observers, but also to future generations of Earth. It reminds us that humanity is a single entity, capable of coming together to represent its culture, history, and planet. The message from Voyager is humanity's first conscious step in attempting to establish contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. Chinese Star Atlas. In 1907, a unique find was discovered in the caves of the city of Dunhuang in China, a star atlas created in the mid-7th century. This ancient document is considered the oldest known astronomical chart. The atlas reflects the deep understanding of Chinese astronomers of the structure of the celestial vault, significantly surpassing the knowledge available to Europe at that time. The Dunhuang map is striking in its accuracy. It contains images of not only large but also smaller constellations, as well as dim stars that had long remained unnoticed on Western star charts. Unlike Western traditions where stars were connected to form mythological figures, Chinese astronomers used simple imaginary lines to group stars. This allowed them to maintain scientific rigor and avoid subjective interpretations. The atlas represents an important stage in the development of astronomy, showing how far the ancient Chinese had advanced in space exploration. It is possible that this map was used not only for astronomical observations, but also for forecasts and navigation, which made it a tool of strategic importance. Some researchers believe that such precise knowledge of the starry sky could be connected with observations of unusual objects in the sky. Legends of ancient China are full of references to heavenly chariots and luminous phenomena, which gives grounds to connect such star atlases with interest in extraterrestrial phenomena. Traces of cannibalism in Britain. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of 37 Bronze Age people with traces of cannibalism in England. The burial was found in a 15-meter deep shaft in Charterhouse, Warren. Analysis of more than 3,000 bones, which belonged to men, women, and children of different ages, showed that they all died violently. The bones show traces of blows from blunt objects, cuts from dismemberment, and even teeth marks on the hands and feet. Scientists suggest that cannibalism was ritualistic and could have been a way of humiliating the defeated. The remains of cattle were also found in the burial, which, according to the researchers, symbolizes the mixing of human and animal remains to completely dehumanize the victims. This discovery destroys the idea of the peaceful nature of the early Bronze Age and demonstrates that mass violence, dismemberment, and dehumanization of enemies were part of human history in Britain thousands of years ago. The Great Comet of 1861. The 19th century was a special time for those who loved to look at the stars. During this period, from 1811 to 1882, people observed as many as 8 great comets that amazed the imagination of scientists and ordinary people. These celestial phenomena inspired artists, composers, and even amateur astronomers. Among all these comets, Donati's Comet of 1858 occupies a special place. It was the first comet that was successfully photographed. But an even more amazing event was the appearance of the Great Comet of 1861. It turned out to be so close to the Earth that our planet literally passed through its tail. For 2 days, this tail obscured the sun's rays, creating an unusual twilight even during the day. The comet was discovered by a farmer from Australia, John Tebbutt. This young amateur astronomer noticed it in the constellation Eridanus on May 13, 1861. At first, he mistook it for a star, but later realized it was a comet. Convinced of his discovery, Tebbutt sent a letter to the local observatory and even published an article in the Sydney Morning Herald. The news of the comet's discovery quickly spread throughout the world. In June 1861, the comet was already observed in the northern hemisphere. Amazing descriptions of its brightness and size were published in newspapers in England. The comet's tail occupied a huge part of the sky and was visible even against the background of daylight. The real sensation was that the Earth crossed the comet's tail, which caused rare atmospheric phenomena. The sky was painted in yellow and reddish hues, and the sun's light became unusually weak. The magnificence of the comet impressed contemporaries, and for John Tebbutt, its discovery became the beginning of a brilliant career. Later, he built his own observatory and made many valuable observations. His contribution to astronomy is immortalized on the Australian $100 note, and the Great Comet of 1861 remains one of the most spectacular events in the history of space observations. Alfred's mysterious jewelry. In 1693 in Somerset, a farmer accidentally stumbled upon an object that changed the way historians perceive early medieval England. Under a layer of earth, a plow uncovered a unique artifact, Alfred's jewelry dating back to the 9th century. This find amazes with its craftsmanship. A piece of gold, enamel, and quartz, decorated with an intricate design and the inscription, "Alfred ordered me to do this." The artifact is associated with the legendary King Alfred the Great, known as one of the most enlightened rulers of England. It is believed that the jewelry could have been part of a staff or pointer used to read sacred texts. This tool represents the unification of power, wisdom, and Alfred's desire for enlightenment. The connection with UFOs and the mysteries of the past becomes interesting if you delve into the symbolism of the object. Some researchers suggest that the intricate design of the decoration and its glittering finish could have been inspired by observations of unusual celestial phenomena. At that time, comets and lights in the sky were perceived as messages from the gods or even extraterrestrial civilizations. The first accurate images of the moon. The beginning of the 17th century was the era of the greatest discoveries in astronomy thanks to the invention of the telescope. The moon, previously considered a smooth celestial body, appeared to scientists in a completely new light. In 1609, Galileo Galilei used a telescope for the first time to study the moon, discovering many craters, mountains, and valleys on its surface. His observations became a real revolution in the perception of celestial bodies. Galileo captured his discoveries in a series of detailed drawings that for the first time depicted the real topography of the moon. These images were included in his work The Starry Messenger, published in 1610. Thanks to these sketches, it became obvious that the surface of the moon is much more complex than ancient philosophers assumed and consists of irregularities reminiscent of mountains on Earth. Interestingly, Galileo was not the first to point a telescope at the moon. Thomas Harriot, an English astronomer, began his observations of the moon as early as 1609. However, his drawings were less detailed and not as widely known. It was Galileo who had a key influence on the development of astronomy. The discovery of the moon as an uneven and living object inspired many generations of researchers. Some ufologists believe that Galileo's drawings may have been the first images of anomalies on the surface of the moon. This interest continues today, giving rise to many theories about the possible extraterrestrial origin of some lunar features. Silver amulet. In Germany, near Frankfurt, archaeologists have discovered a unique artifact, a silver amulet known as the Frankfurt silver inscription. This is the oldest evidence of Christianity north of the Alps, dating back to around 230–270 AD. The find significantly expands our understanding of the spread of Christianity in the Roman Empire. The amulet was found during excavations of a Roman cemetery in the Heilmannstrasse area of the ancient city of Nida. Among 127 burials, the burial ground of a man aged 35–45 years was of particular interest. Along with the usual burial gifts such as pottery and an incense burner, a rolled-up silver foil was found under his chin. Analysis showed that this was a phylactery, an amulet designed to protect the wearer. The contents of the inscription applied to the silver were deciphered using computed tomography. The Latin text consists of 18 lines and contains exclusively Christian formulas. Holy, 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 and in the name of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Quotes from the Epistle of Apostle Paul to the Philippians are also included. This find proves that Christianity spread in the region several decades earlier than previously thought. Nida, as a major Roman cultural and administrative center, became the place where the new religion was able to gain a foothold in a multicultural environment. America is waiting for little men from Saturn. America is once again gripped by excitement, this time because of unidentified flying drones. The situation is reminiscent of previous waves of mass interest, from flying saucers to Chinese weather balloons. It seems that this trend is repeated again and again, growing with new details and conspiracy theories. Amid the many videos circulating on the internet, some drones look more like a product of computer graphics. Special effects imposed in After Effects are easy to recognize for a person who is at least a little familiar with editing. However, this does not prevent the videos from causing heated discussions because viewers tend to believe what they see. The Biden administration claims that these are civilian commercial drones, and Donald Trump calls on the government to shoot down any unidentified objects and reveal the whole truth. A peculiarity of the American mentality is a love of conspiracy theories. Drones, like flying saucers in the past, immediately become the subject of speculation. they are already causing talk of alien intelligence, agents of Saturn, or even preparations for the inauguration of a hypothetical alien leader. Some recall black helicopters that allegedly abducted people on orders from reptilians. And here comes the alarm again, this time because of drones. It is curious that the excitement around unknown objects occurs with enviable regularity. Remember the Chinese balloons that flew over the USA for a long time until they were suddenly noticed. Then panic gripped society, which, however, quickly subsided. Perhaps the new wave of drone fever will soon fade away, or maybe we really are on the threshold of a new chapter in the history of strange phenomena. But for now, it seems the world is simply entertaining itself with new mystical theories to distract itself from more pressing problems. Coffin on the roof. For centuries, human bodies have been the subject of anatomy studies, often using executed criminals as the primary source. However, as the death penalty declined in the 18th and 19th centuries, medical schools began to suffer from a shortage of bodies for research. This problem gave rise to resurrectionists, people who dug up freshly buried corpses to sell to anatomists. To protect against such thefts, cemeteries were equipped with cages, traps, and hired guards. Some bodies were even left in dead man's houses so that decomposition would make them useless to robbers. But Englishman Henry Trigg found his own extremely unusual way. Henry lived in Stevenage in the 18th century, was a wealthy grocer, and was respected in the community. However, one day he witnessed thieves digging up a body in the cemetery. This shocked him so much that he decided not to let this happen to him. In his will, Henry asked that his body be placed in a lead coffin and placed under the rafters of his own barn, away from the cemetery. He even included a punishment for his relatives if his last will was violated. After his death in 1724, his body was indeed placed in the barn, which attracted a lot of curious visitors. Over time, the barn became an inn and Henry's coffin became a local landmark. However, his remains suffered a sad fate. Visitors and soldiers took them for souvenirs, and by the beginning of the 20th century, only a small part of the skeleton remained. Today, Henry's coffin still rests in the barn, but the remains are lost, leaving behind only legends about his ghost. Message from Galileo Galilei. The middle finger of the right hand of the great Italian astronomer Galileo Galilei, now kept in the Museo Galileo in Florence, has long been a symbol of scientific progress and the indomitable spirit of reason. This strange exhibit, enclosed in an elegant gilded glass egg, was removed from Galileo's body almost a century after his death. Why did this finger become such an important symbol? Galileo, famous for his discoveries in the field of astronomy, became the main opponent of church dogmas about the geocentric model of the world. His works on the heliocentric system were perceived as a challenge not only to religious beliefs, but also to the very idea of an unchanging structure of the world. The middle finger, as some believe, symbolizes the scientist's strict refusal to submit to dogma, defending the truth based on observations and scientific experiments. Today, in the age of space exploration, Galileo's finger can be seen as an ironic message to those who continue to ignore the advances of science, whether they be flat earthers or conspiracy theorists. Galileo, who first saw the moons of Jupiter and the stars of the Milky Way with a telescope, expanded humanity's understanding of the universe. His legacy continues to inspire those who seek the truth about our place in the cosmos, even if that truth may include the possibility of extraterrestrial life. UFO expert finds portal. Expert Carl Nally from the UFO and Paranormal Research Ireland organization claims that in the central part of Ireland between Athlone and Slane, there may be a portal through which UFOs get to Earth. According to him, these sightings have become more frequent in recent months, and their purpose may be related to the study of the military force of Earthlings. This statement appeared against the backdrop of reports of unidentified objects spotted near military bases and nuclear facilities. According to Nally, the U.S. authorities were unable to establish the origin of these objects, which only strengthens the assumptions about their extraterrestrial origin. The expert paid special attention to Ireland, where numerous cases of UFO sightings have been recorded. Nally believes that places such as the region between Athlone and Slane may be portals through which alien ships travel between space and Earth. He also noted that such phenomena occur all over the world at the same time, which indicates a global increase in activity. Write in the comments, is it worth trusting such experts, and do you believe in the existence of alien life? Ancient bone floor. In the Dutch city of Alkmaar, archaeologists have made a unique find, part of a floor made of animal bones. This rare discovery was made on Amsterdam Street during reconstruction work on a building. A floor made of bones is a real rarity, especially for the province of North Holland, although similar examples have been found in other historic cities in the region, such as Hoorn, Enkhuizen, and Edam. Archaeologists have discovered that the floor is partly made of the midsection and feet of cattle. The bones were carefully processed to achieve the same height and arranged in a pattern. Some were positioned with their points upwards, others with flat cuts. They filled the gaps between antique tiles, creating a unique decorative pattern. The purpose of the bones in the floor structure remains a mystery. Perhaps they were used due to their availability and cheapness, or in connection with certain functions of the building. It is possible that specific activities related to meat trade or animal processing were carried out in this place, but the exact reasons have yet to be established. The moon was created by extraterrestrial civilizations. The moon, our satellite, is full of mysteries that still excite the minds of scientists. Its size is 27.4% the size of the Earth, but its mass is only 1.2%. These proportions, together with the data that the moon rings like a bell when struck by meteorites, suggest that it may be hollow. The depth of the craters is also surprising. Regardless of the size of the meteorites, it remains almost the same. 4.5 kilometers, which may indicate the presence of a strong protective layer under the surface. The composition of the moon adds intrigue. On its surface, processed metals such as brass and radioactive elements, including uranium-236 and neptunium-237, which are not found in nature, have been found. The moon is also disproportionately large for its satellite. It is 6 times larger than any other relative to the size of its planet. Its unique stability without hesitation also sets it apart from the celestial bodies. Mathematical coincidences further enhance the sense of artificiality. The distance to the Sun is 108 times its diameter, just as the distance to the Moon is 108 times its size, and its ideal geometry allows it to completely cover the Sun during eclipses. Also, the Moon always faces the Earth with one side, which is not typical for satellites, and stabilizes the Earth's axis, affecting the climate and biorhythms. These features suggest that the moon is not just a natural object, but perhaps the result of artificial intervention, leaving us with more questions than answers. Incredible discovery under the Nile. Archaeologists have made an amazing discovery under the Nile in the Aswan area, a collection of ancient Egyptian artifacts and rock carvings dating back to the era when the city experienced a massive flood. The relics date back to the reigns of pharaohs such as Amenhotep III, Thutmose IV, and Psammetichus II. Aswan, about 4,500 years ago, was an important trading and military center. Gold, wood, and spices were exchanged here, and local granite quarries supplied materials for the construction of temples, obelisks, and pyramids. However, after the construction of the Aswan Dam, most of the city was underwater. A Franco-Egyptian archaeological mission discovered unique rock reliefs depicting pharaohs, hieroglyphic inscriptions, and other sculptural elements. The work was carried out using modern technologies such as underwater scanning, photogrammetry, and 3D modeling. These methods allowed us to document the artifacts we found in detail and create digital copies of them. Of particular interest are the images of Amenhotep III, who ruled Egypt for about 40 years and left a rich legacy. His burial place was in the Theban necropolis on the west bank of the Nile, opposite modern Luxor. Unfortunately, many monuments associated with his era were damaged by floods, but the new find gives hope for the restoration of these historical relics. Mysterious floating island. The floating island of El Ojo in Argentina has inspired many speculations and theories, from a UFO haven to a place where ancient spirits live. However, scientists give a more rational explanation for its existence, considering it to be the result of natural processes of erosion and the movement of water masses. This mysterious round island is located in the swampy delta of the Parana River. Its name means eye in translation, due to its striking resemblance to a perfectly round eye when viewed from above. The island attracted attention in 2016 when Argentine director Sergio Noispierre explored the area for a documentary. From a bird's-eye view, El Ojo impresses with its shape and purity. The water around it, despite its apparent blackness, is crystal clear, which is unusual for the turbid waters of the delta. The diameter of the island is 118 meters, and its rotation around its axis is a consequence of the action of currents, which also polish the shore of the lake, forming perfect outlines. This process is ongoing, and scientists believe that it explains the round appearance of the island and the lake. El Ojo first appeared on satellite images about 20 years ago. Its origins are still shrouded in mystery. How and when it separated from the mainland is still unknown. Locals, although they knew about its existence, preferred to avoid the place, believing that an ancient deity lived there. Some put forward theories about UFOs or even a Nazi base, but there is no evidence to support these versions. Extraordinary burial unearthed. A unique artifact has been unearthed in a 6th century AD female burial in eastern Lincolnshire, England. A Roman cup dating to the 3rd century AD. The find, made during excavations at the Scramby Cemetery, explores the interaction between Anglo-Saxon and Roman cultures and sheds light on the burial customs of the time. The copper alloy cup was found in the grave of a young woman designated Ski 18. The deceased was also found to have 2 brooches and bracelets. The placement of the artifact next to the woman's head suggests its symbolic significance. The cup, known as the Scramby cup, is in excellent condition. It measures 5.7 centimeters high and holds around 280 milliliters. Its decoration is Roman in style, with crescent and heart patterns covered in red, aquamarine, and bluish-violet enamel, demonstrating the skill of Roman craftsmen. It is believed that the bowl was made in France and brought to England in the 3rd century AD. Analysis of the inside of the bowl revealed traces of unheated pork fat. This may indicate that it was used for ritual or medicinal purposes. Pig fat was used to treat infections at the time, which is consistent with Byzantine texts of the period. The uniqueness of the find is also that the bowl was preserved intact, unlike most Roman artifacts, which are usually found in fragments. Thousands of people will disappear. A mysterious man with the nickname Darkness Time Travel, who claims to be a time traveler from 2858, continues to excite the minds of social media users. His account on one of the popular platforms has gained more than 150,000 subscribers, and one of the videos telling about predictions has already collected over 1 million views. Such statements not only arouse interest but also many questions, especially among those who are passionate about history and archaeology. "I am a real-time traveler, listen carefully," he claims in his video. Among his predictions is a plane crash in the United States on December 13th in the western part of Wisconsin, where half of the passengers will allegedly survive. In 2025, according to him, a record number of UFOs will be seen over the United States, and on October 19th, a glowing cloud will cover the top of the Eiffel Tower, causing a wave of discussions around the world. But the most mysterious event will be the activation of the Bermuda Triangle. From September 28th, ships and planes will begin to disappear en masse, taking thousands of people with them. Another unusual prediction concerns March 21st, 2026. The user claims that an underwater structure will be discovered off the coast of Brazil that will surprise even archaeologists. Strange fish, previously unknown to science, will gather around it, and the structure itself may become the key to understanding the mysteries of the ancient world and perhaps even a connection with alien civilizations. These statements cause heated debate, especially among anomaly researchers and archaeology enthusiasts. If the discovered structure really turns out to be an ancient artifact capable of changing our understanding of history, this could become one of the most sensational finds of the century. The most amazing and large-scale forecast for the future sounds like a utopian dream. They say that at the end of 2026, an era of harmony and happiness will begin on Earth, as if humanity will find itself in a paradise. This period will last for several years, during which all wars will cease and people will forget about old grievances and quarrels. Envy and malice will disappear, giving way to kindness and mutual understanding. But it is precisely this calm that will become a catalyst for grandiose changes. The world that calms its storm will soon face the consequences of such a sharp transition. What seemed ideal will mark the beginning of a new stage in the history of mankind. Global changes will inevitably lead to chaos, which will determine the further path of civilization. Perhaps this paradox will become the biggest mystery of the future. How can an era of peace give rise to a new wave of upheavals? Antenna at the bottom of the sea. In 1964, the research vessel USNS El Tanin was exploring the depths of the Southern Ocean and accidentally took a photo of something incomprehensible. At a depth of 3,900 meters, the camera recorded an object that looked like a radio antenna. What is this? Another lost signal from aliens? The news quickly spread through the newspapers, and everyone decided that this was confirmation of extraterrestrial intelligence. But everything turned out to be not so simple. After a while, scientists found out that this is not an alien technology. In fact, it was a deep-sea sponge that really looked like an antenna from a distance. As it turned out, nature also has its own design style. Bas-reliefs with mechanisms. Sometimes we see faces, animals, or objects in the clouds. This is called pareidolia, when our brain draws familiar images where they actually do not exist. What about space pareidolia? Remember the face on Mars that turned out to be just a mountain? A similar situation happened in Egypt, in the city of Dendera. In an ancient temple, archaeologists discovered a bas-relief that depicts a gas discharge lamp. Did the Egyptians use electricity? In fact, this image combines a flower and a snake, which symbolize stability and fertility. But in the Temple of Osiris, found a helicopter and an airship. But even here there are no surprises. These turned out to be traces of old plaster, which eventually wore off and created such interesting drawings. Quarry skull. The next incredible story is about the famous Piltdown Man. We are going to 1912 in the small village of Piltdown in England. The bones of an ancient man who lived more than 500,000 years ago were found in a gravel pit. But no ordinary man's bones. This skull looked like a mixture of ape and human, like a missing link in evolution. Archaeologists, including the famous Charles Dawson, were delighted. They even named the find after him, Eoanthropus dawsoni. More bones and a fang were found in the quarry, which definitely belonged to this ancient man. Piltdown Man became a celebrity. He was considered the ancestor of modern people. However, in 1953, the truth was revealed. It was all a fake. The skull was painted and made to look like an ancient one, and the jaw belonged to an orangutan. Even the fang was painted. Many suspect Dawson himself of creating this fabrication. There are other suspects, including the famous writer Arthur Conan Doyle. But the mystery remained unsolved. Piltdown Man has become one of the most notorious archaeological hoaxes. As you can see, even scientists can be deceived. Did you believe in this story? Singapore Stone. In front of you is a huge sandstone stone which is several centuries old. It stood at the mouth of the Singapore River, like a staunch guardian of time. On it you can see strange symbols. This is an inscription that could not be deciphered. It may have been written in Old Javanese or Sanskrit. Maybe it was ordered by some powerful madman. This stone is even associated with the legendary strongman of the 14th century named Badang. They say he threw a stone into the river and later stone columns were erected in his honor. But what happened to it next? In 1843, the stone was blown up to widen the passage at the mouth of the river. Only pieces of it remain, and one of them is now in the National Museum of Singapore as a national treasure. This stone is not just an old piece of sandstone. This is the mystery that scientists are trying to solve. The secret that this inscription holds will tell us more about the past and the people who lived in ancient times. Perhaps technology from the future will help us decipher it. Petrified bullet. Mysterious 2,200-year-old bullet found inside stone in Crimea. Yeah, you heard me right, a bullet. In those days, small arms and gunpowder did not yet exist. Researchers discovered it when the stone cracked. How did the bullet end up inside the ancient stone? This find could change the whole history. Could it be that a bullet from the future hit the past and lain in the ground for several millennia? In any case, the artifact is shrouded in mystery and we can only guess what really happened. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. Delhi, purple sapphire. This story begins with a Hindu temple where the mystical Delhi purple sapphire was kept, but it was actually an amethyst. During the Indian Rebellion of 1857, Colonel Ferris took the stone for himself. He did not know that horrors awaited him ahead, loss of fortune and health. And the same thing happened to his son. The writer Edward Heron Allen became the owner of the amethyst in 1890, but bad luck continued to haunt him. He even tried to drown the stone, but to no avail. As a result, the stone, as if stained with blood, ended up in a safe and then in the London Museum of Natural History. No one else dared to own this stone. So if you suddenly come across this stone, be careful. There are curses in archaeology. Don't you believe it? Subscribe to my channel and I will tell you many more amazing stories. Iron in the Bronze Age. And how can one explain the existence of iron in the Bronze Age? After all, after the Stone Age, the Bronze Age follows, and only then the Iron Age. Is this clear evidence of time travel? The answer is simple and at the same time mysterious. Meteorites. Yes, it was in meteorites that ancient people found iron. These space rocks that have fallen to Earth are made of an iron-nickel alloy that hardly rusts. And so the ancient masters began to process this heavenly iron, creating amazing things. One of the famous examples is the dagger of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, made more than 3,300 years ago from meteoric iron. Considered a gift from the king of Mitanni, it can be seen in a museum in Cairo. In the U.S. state of Illinois, they even found iron beads made from a meteorite. Iron was so valuable that only kings and priests used it. Iron in the Bronze Age is like a gift from heaven. Iron lost its sacred meaning only with the advent of the Iron Age. No mummy. Do you know the legends about small creatures that lived underground? The Ainu, the original inhabitants of Japan, and the American Indians described them as undersized creatures that lived in the underworlds. Perhaps this is even the prototype of the mysterious gnomes. In 1932, in the mountains of San Pedro, gold diggers blew up a rock and discovered a strange mummy weighing only 340 grams and 46 centimeters tall. This dwarf was covered in a strange dark substance, and his eyes seemed incredibly bulging. Scientists have long thought who it is: a doll, a mummy of a child, or evidence of some ancient race. Unfortunately, the mummy disappeared, and one can only guess about its fate. Many ufologists consider it a possible proof of a subhuman or even extraterrestrial race. Where this mysterious mummy is now, no one knows. Baghdad Battery. And how do you explain this find from the past which combines the technologies of the present? In 1938, archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig discovered a mysterious earthenware jar in the Iraqi desert. Inside the jug was an iron rod wrapped in copper. It looks like an ancient battery that is 2,000 years old. One scientist even took a copy of such a Baghdad battery, filled it with grape juice, and got electricity. The TV show Mythbusters also tested this theory, and it turned out to be plausible. Could the ancient inhabitants of Iraq have used this jug as a battery? Maybe they just kept the scrolls in it, or was it a cunning trick in the temples? Scientists are still arguing. Unfortunately, the original jug was stolen in 2003, and now we can only guess what it actually served for. Perhaps this jar is the key to the secrets of ancient technologies, or maybe it's just an interesting artifact. Viking Sunstones. Imagine the Vikings, mighty seafarers who conquered the seas from Norway to North America. In sunny weather, everything was simple. They looked at the sky and swam where they needed to. But what to do if the sun is not visible? This is where the mysterious sunstone, or solarstein, comes into play. This crystal was not just a beautiful jewel, but also a kind of Viking compass. With it, they could determine where the sun was in the sky, even if it was hidden behind clouds or fog. The researchers puzzled for a long time what kind of stone it was until they realized that it could be Icelandic spar or cordierite. These crystals could split the light and show the path of the sun to within a few degrees. This story tells us that it is not necessary to use the technologies of the future. Our ancestors managed, with the help of primitive objects, to navigate the seas and oceans at any time of the day. The Starving of Saqqara. We simply cannot ignore ancient Egypt, the world of pharaohs and pyramids. This civilization has always excited the minds of scientists, but there is one mystery that has not yet been solved, and that is a sculpture called the Starving of Saqqara. It depicts two strange figures with large heads, and no one knows who they are. The language of the inscriptions on the sculpture also remained unknown. This statue is like no other. It remained in a private collection until it arrived at Concordia University in Canada in 1999. Experts from all over the world are still trying to figure out if this is a unique example of ancient art or a cunning fake. So what is it really? The real truth about the starving of Saqqara is still hidden. Maybe some of you will be able to find out the truth. Penny from Maine. Known as the Goddard penny, this Viking coin was discovered near an old American Indian settlement in Maine in 1956. Could it be that Vikings and Indians once met? The only known Viking site in America is Canada, not Maine. Some scientists think it might be a fake. Does anyone think that Goddard himself or one of the archaeologists put the coin? But so far, this coin is a real mystery that has been worrying researchers for more than half a century. History reminds us that the past is always full of surprises and unknown secrets. Stone Age tunnels. Imagine the maze of tunnels underground in Europe that stretches from Scotland to the Mediterranean. These mysterious tunnels date back to the Stone Age and have been around for 12,000 years. Archaeologists such as Heinrich Kusch are simply amazed by this miracle. The tunnels, only 70 centimeters wide, stretch for hundreds of kilometers underground. There are even rest areas. Who built them and why? Maybe they were shelters from enemies or mystical passages of elves and dwarves. What if someone in ancient times tried to build subway lines? What is it? A mystery of antiquity or something more? The secrets of these tunnels may never be revealed, but they are a reminder of how amazing and incomprehensible ancient civilizations can be. To dig deep underground in the Stone Age without the technology of the future, such a tunnel is an unrealistic task. Pharaoh's Mobile. This is one of the most inexplicable archaeological finds discovered in the tomb of the ancient Egyptian ruler Thutmose III. Archaeologist Amin Fahmy discovered this strange object back in 1923 during excavations in the Valley of the Kings. Then the researchers did not quite understand what it could be and placed this item in a museum. After 100 years, they decided to return to it to carefully study it. The device shocked scientists with its resemblance to a modern mobile phone. It was a thin rectangle of gold and jade engraved with symbols resembling buttons. Were there time travelers who could bring a modern device into the past? After all, often in the tombs of the pharaohs, archaeologists managed to find bas-reliefs on which the ancient Egyptians hold something similar to a modern smartphone in their hands. Some researchers have suggested that it may have been a decorative ornament or a status symbol, but no one has been able to pinpoint its purpose. Materials and manufacturing technology, which were unusual for that era, were especially questionable. At the beginning of the 20th century, photographs of this item and the tomb where it was discovered were immediately leaked to the press. The exotic find has given rise to many theories and speculations. Some claim that this is evidence of the contact of the ancient Egyptians with extraterrestrial civilizations or time travelers. Others consider this a joke or a hoax. Despite numerous studies, the Pharaoh's Mobile remains a mysterious artifact that has no analogs in the history of archaeology. This find continues to inspire scientists for new research and makes us think about the unsolved mysteries of ancient Egypt. Stone softening technology. Do you think it is possible to construct a building out of giant stones weighing up to 150 tons using nothing but round stone hammers? Well, they did it in Peru. Here is the mysterious Sacsayhuaman complex with amazing walls where huge boulders are so perfectly fitted to each other that even a knife can't get between them. Scientists are still puzzled over how this is done. The official explanation sounds incredible. The Incas threshed stones, lifted them, checked how they fit, and chipped off the excess. Wait a minute, they lifted 150-ton stones with hammers? It can't be. Interestingly, the Incas themselves admitted that the buildings were here long before them, and there is also a legend about a liquid that made the stones soft. Mystic, isn't it? One thing is certain, the walls of Sacsayhuaman hide secrets that we can only guess about. Perhaps they are the key to a forgotten civilization about which we know almost nothing. Is the Alaskan Triangle a secret alien base? The Alaska Triangle is a sparsely populated area located between Juneau, Anchorage, and the small town of Barrow. According to official data, more than 20,000 people have disappeared in this analog of the Bermuda Triangle since 1970. Researchers claim strange paranormal activity, and some believe that aliens live here, having set up secret underground bases. By being close to humans, aliens can spy on military technology, which points to a number of strange events and an increase in UFO sightings after World War II. The disappearance of 44 military personnel and a Douglas C-54 aircraft can only confirm this assumption, since search and rescue operations did not yield any results. It would seem that all this is baseless speculation, but in 1995, declassified documents revealed that the highest point of the Alaskan Triangle, Mount Hayes, was mentioned in a top-secret government project called Stargate. The documents not only talk about aliens, but also claim that their base was located under the base of the mountain. No one was physically there, but the CIA used an experimental research technique called remote viewing. The psychic projection method allowed people with supernatural abilities to look into any place without physically leaving the CIA building. While working on the project, the one who stood out the most was a psychic named Pat Price. He became the first to confirm the presence of aliens hiding deep under a mountain in the middle of Alaska. The psychic's predictions were amazingly accurate, as were the drawings of what lay beneath Mount Hayes. The alien base had a clear structure consisting of tunnels, and the CIA agents knew about it. Soon after what he saw, Pat began to fear for his life, telling his loved ones that he had put himself in danger. Unfortunately, the psychic turned out to be right, as he was accidentally pushed in a Las Vegas hotel. The acute pain in the leg was not cause for concern, but the man died the next morning. What is equally astonishing is that the hospital did not notify the relatives of what had happened, but simply cremated the body. The clearest photograph of a UFO. On September 4, 1971, in the northern highlands of Costa Rica, photographer Sergio Loaiza was conducting aerial photography of Lake Cote for the National Geographic Institute. Using a special mapping camera that takes photos at 13-second intervals, he did his job, unaware that one of the frames would be unique. Upon returning to the laboratory, Sergio checked the photographs and noticed in one of them a mysterious round metal object located on the right side of the photograph. It is noteworthy that an object resembling a flying saucer was not detected in either the previous or subsequent frames. For some time, the National Geographic Institute tried to hide the discovery, prohibiting Sergio and his colleagues from talking about the incident. A metallic flying object with a diameter of more than 18 meters was a closely guarded secret. But in 1979, a photograph appeared in an Argentine newspaper and was analyzed by experts. Soon, Costa Rica declared the photo as official confirmation of the existence of a UFO. Despite many years of study and debate among researchers in this area, no one has been able to say what kind of object this is. Skeptics suggested that the object on the right side of the photo was some kind of debris or stain that got onto the film while working with photographs. In 2021, a family friend was able to obtain the original photo in order to scan it using modern technology. This made it possible to digitize the image, making it clearer and more detailed. This allowed skeptics to see the saucer-shaped object at a higher resolution. The updated image allowed us to discard a number of banal assumptions and theories, since this was not a stain or chip on the camera glass. So what was it? Share your guesses in the comments.
Burning UFO over Canada. 2018 Quebec. While on a walk and enjoying their vacation, the family noticed a strange object in the sky and decided to film it. An inexplicably shaped object was slowly rotating, glowing with green and bright red lights. Casual spectators were amazed, realizing that they had witnessed something truly strange and unusual. At first glance, it might seem that this is a spaceship burning fuel while gaining altitude. Canada is one of the few countries that officially records UFO data. As they collect data, they publish surprising findings and images, causing skeptics to doubt that humanity is the only superior race in the universe. The object caught in the video has no visible means of movement and exhibits anti-gravity properties, hovering in the air for some time. The absence of wings and exhaust gases proves that this is not an aircraft. Some skeptics tried to justify this with natural phenomena as an optical illusion, but on this day the weather was beautiful and it was clearly noticeable that this object was three-dimensional. A close guess suggests that the object was a hot air balloon with a mirror surface, but is this true? Perhaps we are simply denying the obvious, afraid to admit that aliens exist and they are already among us? Supernatural destruction of Mohenjo-Daro. In 1922, an officer from the Archaeological Survey of India, along with a Buddhist monk, went to the area, which turned out to be a religious monument. Instead of mounds of mud and stones, an entire Bronze Age city with a grid of streets, complex drainage systems, and flush toilets was discovered in Sindh, modern-day Pakistan. The city was part of the Harappan civilization, which reached its peak 5,000 years ago and ceased to exist around 1900 BC. The Mound of the Dead is the legacy of one of the oldest civilizations. The inhabitants of Mohenjo-Daro were in no way inferior to Egypt and ancient Mesopotamia. Once upon a time, this region was inhabited by about 35,000 people, but archaeologists managed to find only 43 skeletons that have survived to this day. The city's disappearance was mysterious, but in 1977, a British researcher discovered evidence suggesting it was caused by a massive explosion. Melted rocks and calcified skeletons suggest that the inhabitants of Mohenjo-Daro died instantly. In 2014, a doctor of mineralogy conducted a series of analyses and tests which suggests a connection between the Harappan civilization and aliens. This is indicated not only by the high level of development of the local residents, but also by the fact that they burned at a temperature of several thousand degrees. There are no volcanoes here, and the technology to reach such temperatures did not exist. Cubic UFO scared the plane pilot. In February 2020, an aircraft on duty in Colombia collided with an unusual air object. Being at an altitude of more than 9 kilometers, the captain took a mobile phone in order to film a metal object moving in a straight line. Something that looks like a cube has nothing in common with a balloon or other objects capable of being at such a height. The distance from the aircraft to the object has not been established, so its estimated diameter is between 3 and 5 meters. Scientists suggest that extraterrestrial civilizations are afraid of a direct collision with humanity and are not ready for direct contact. The object caught on camera may be analogous to a scout who found himself on Earth in order to observe us from the side. Perhaps the aliens are studying us and are slowly preparing to visit our planet. Is it so? Time will tell, but the experts who evaluated the video did not reach a consensus. The object does not have wings and does not leave a trail, which means it is not a man-made device. Skeptics suggest that the metal cube is just a balloon that was inflated at an altitude of more than 9 kilometers, but physicists are convinced that the low temperature would not allow it to rise so high.
Are aliens sending signals from space? With the development of modern technologies, humanity began to study not only the surrounding space, but also outermost space. Technological progress does not stand still, and new inventions make it possible to obtain more and more information about how this world works. Scientists have repeatedly received signals from space that are of a strange nature. Some of them took decades to study, which is intriguing and suggests that aliens living somewhere far away are trying to contact us. The strangest and most mysterious signal received from space was a radio signal emanating directly from the center of the Milky Way galaxy. In 2020, astronomers around the world were stumped when an Australian radio telescope identified more than 2 million objects sending signals to Earth. The computer qualified all radio signals except one. An unknown object lurking at the center of our galaxy was emitting powerful radio waves, sending out 6 signals in 9 months. The irregular structure and polarized radio emission were unlike any previous signal. Equally strange is that the object cannot be seen with X-ray or infrared light. 2 powerful radio telescopes observed it all this time, but the object mysteriously disappeared. It would seem that this is where the story ends, but a year later the strange radio signal was repeated and disappeared again a day later. This atypical behavior suggests that this is not a dead star or other space object known to mankind. Stumped, scientists classified the rare signal into a category called radio transients from the galactic center. At the moment, the category includes only 3 objects, the search for which took more than 10 years. The new Square Kilometer Array telescope, which should be commissioned in 2028, will help solve the mystery and possibly recognize the alien signal. Iraqi ghost. Not long ago, a video published by the famous American ufologist and director Jeremy Corbell blew up the internet space. The so-called Iraqi ghost, shaped like a jellyfish, has caused heated discussion online and attracted the attention of both scientists and avid skeptics. The published recording shows how a ball-shaped object with hanging tentacles flies smoothly and without changing its speed over an American military base located in Iraq. The source claims that after this, the ghost sank into the pond and stayed there for 17 minutes, after which it took off sharply at an angle of 45 degrees relative to the ground, and having gained incredible speed, disappeared from visibility. Unfortunately, the footage only shows a flight over the base, but the soldiers did not notice the object, which indicates its silent movement. Another interesting feature is the change in color of the UFO, becoming gray, white, and then black. All this indicates a change in the temperature of an object that feels great both in water and on land. Scientists suggest that UFOs are the result of the activities of an underwater earthly civilization about which humanity still knows nothing. Ufologists are convinced that this video confirms the existence of aliens using objects of extraterrestrial origin. Critics are convinced that the Iraqi ghost is hot air balloons flying close to each other. It is impossible to confirm or refute their statements, since the recording was not made while the object was immersed in water. It is noteworthy that this is not the first UFO that has the shape of a jellyfish. In 1977, the famous Petrozavodsk phenomenon occurred when 100 people saw an unidentified object resembling a sea monster. A similar object was spotted in Sao Paulo in 2020, causing shock among temperamental Brazilians. Separately, it is worth mentioning the fact that the recording was filmed in 2018, but the U.S. government diligently hid this information, fearing public disclosure. Giant flames in the sky of South Florida. On February 9, 2021, a South Florida man was returning home from work when he suddenly noticed a flash of light, causing him to stop. Having recorded what was happening on his phone, Stewart witnessed an unusual phenomenon. At some point, a large white plume began to unfold across the sky, becoming larger and larger. This did not shock the worker, but rather amazed him because the phenomenon resembled a giant flame engulfing the night sky of Florida. As you know, this state is popular among UFOs. Since 1998, there have been more than 7,000 alien sightings in South Florida, some of which still defy logical explanation. As for this situation, the glow is as similar as possible to the trace left after the launch of Elon Musk's rockets in 2017. After the space mission began, similar glowing contrails remained in the sky, leading to an obvious conclusion. Despite the mysterious pattern in the night sky, it was probably not aliens, but a test of a hypersonic missile that left a bizarre trail that scared the residents of South Florida.
Has the first battle with aliens already happened? On August 26, 1946, an American scientific expedition set out for the South Pole. It was led by naval officer and explorer Admiral Richard Byrd, who took part in the First World War. The expedition involved 13 ships, 33 aircraft, and almost 5,000 U.S. Navy soldiers. The group under the command of the admiral returned only 9 months later, reporting that it had to engage in battle with the remnants of the Third Reich and possibly aliens. Flying objects attacked the expedition members and caused significant damage to the American group. Byrd in his report claimed to have seen unidentified devices capable of moving at incredible speeds, changing their location almost instantly. At that time, the admiral's statements, despite his high status, seemed like fiction. However, in 2018, a satellite image revealed a contrail left by something moving at incredible speeds. The trail stretched across the entire Earth, connecting the South and North Poles, which is about 20,000 kilometers. The maximum duration of preservation of the trace and its shape is 30 minutes, while most of it begins to dissipate after 15 minutes. Based on the data obtained, we can say that the object that left the contrail was moving at a speed of at least 80,000 kilometers per hour, which is 10 times higher than the speed of the fastest aircraft existing at the moment. Computer that is 2,500 years old. A GNC, April 1900. Literally 100 meters from the coast of a small island, divers discovered the site of an ancient shipwreck located at a depth of 45 meters. For 2 years, researchers and archaeologists studied the debris, among which they discovered part of a metal box made of coral and created in the 2nd century BC. This device is the first mechanical computer ever discovered by mankind. The mechanism is 1,500 years older than any similar artifact and contains dozens of gears that control the mechanism. It is assumed that an analog computer could be used to predetermine astronomical events. Ancient Greece, it turns out, had knowledge of mechanics and could create devices, which completely changes our perception of history. It is assumed that the ship set sail from the shores of the island of Rhodes because this place was considered a haven of high technology of that time. The poets of ancient Greece repeatedly mentioned in their works animated statues that could freeze in place or begin to move as if life had been breathed into them. It is quite possible that this was not a literary device, but the first prototypes of robots created by man. The Greeks claimed that they received knowledge from the gods who descended to them from heaven. It is possible that in this way they explained the meeting with aliens who decided to share their technology with humanity. Strange object hovering in the sky for several hours. According to Islamic scholars, there are verses in the Holy Quran that indirectly hint at the presence of extraterrestrial life. Perhaps this is why there is more and more information that residents of Islamic countries such as Pakistan are witnessing UFOs. On January 25, 2022, in Islamabad, a local resident watching the sunset from the roof of his house noticed a mysterious black object hovering in the sky. An unidentified thing, more reminiscent of a flying stone, was motionless for several hours. Changing its shape over time, the object became like a triangle. It is noteworthy that the flying object did not emit or reflect light, completely freezing at an altitude of about 500 meters. The local resident was shocked and watched the object with interest, filming it on his phone as he had never seen anything like it. Experts who watched the video are skeptical about the discovery. Pakistan is a country with high military potential that is actively developing unmanned aerial devices. It is likely that what was seen was a loitering munition or a drone performing a test flight. Despite the fact that the discovery was made in 2022, the video is of rather poor quality. This does not allow experts to make an unambiguous verdict, leaving a chance for the extraterrestrial origin of the mysterious object.
Monolith in the middle of the desert. In November 2020, in the Red Rock Desert of southern Utah, a helicopter crew and biologists were counting livestock when they noticed something startling. Approaching the mysterious object, they discovered a large, shiny silver object located in a canyon inaccessible to humans. Utah authorities tried to keep the discovery a secret, but soon data about it was leaked on social networks. People struck by the object called it the Utah monolith, a remnant of aliens. A mysterious metal monument that found itself in the middle of the desert has become the subject of fantasies and the rich imagination of people who believe in the existence of more intelligent civilizations living on other planets. It was assumed that this monolith was left by an alien spaceship so that they could contact us. Many were convinced that the monolith was built from alien building materials. The materials have unique properties that are not found in nature on our planet. The metal and ceramic composite is capable of absorbing radar waves. It is known that alien ships with anti-gravity properties can have a similar alloy. Some believe that the US government not only knows about these materials, but is also using the remains of alien ships to create the next generation of weapons. Experts carefully checked the monolith to determine the type of metal and also tried to find cavities in the mysterious object. Despite all the theories and speculation on social networks, scientists are convinced that the monolith was created by man and perhaps placed in the canyon only to become a manifestation of the beauty of a work of art. Friendship between the inhabitants of ancient Egypt and aliens. The topic of the connection between ancient Egypt and UFOs is a subject of interest to many researchers and paranormal enthusiasts. Many facts remain speculation, but there are also details that defy logical explanation. In some temples and pyramids, you can find drawings reminiscent of modern ideas about UFOs. The most famous example is the image on the walls of the Temple of Ramesses II at Abu Simbel. On one of the walls, researchers found an image of a flying saucer with a round shape and strange aerodynamic characteristics. Other evidence includes numerous papyrus records about UFOs. One of them is translated as follows: "And a circle of fire appeared in the sky. It had no head, but a terrible stench came out of its mouth. Its body was huge. It was voiceless." A little scary, isn't it? Similar records belong to a chronicler who lived 3,500 years ago. He claimed that the sky was covered with fiery discs, but the pharaoh did not chicken out and did not allow the soldiers to flee, after which the flying objects disappeared in an instant. Concepts such as wing shields and discs of fire appear repeatedly in ancient Egyptian written religious sources. Iron was practically unmined in ancient Egypt and was a rare metal, but writings often mention iron thrones, scepters, and clothing intended for the pharaoh. The sun god was dressed in metal and sat on a throne of iron and fire, which also sounds quite strange. The Abydos hieroglyphs discovered in the hall of the funeral temple of Pharaoh Seti deserve special attention. Here, ufologists noticed a helicopter, a submarine, a glider, and an airship. For a long time, photographs of the find were considered falsified, but soon their authenticity was confirmed. There were suggestions that the inhabitants of ancient Egypt were able to look into the future, while other scientists believed that aliens traveled in time and simply told them about the events of the 20th century. Skeptics categorically deny such ideas, believing that the images were the result of the superposition of two hieroglyphic inscriptions, which suffered destruction of the plaster between them. There is another, no less amazing drawing where a flying disc drops an aerial bomb, but critics here have their own logical explanation.
Secret UFO video hidden by the U.S. government. On November 23, 2019, near the southern border between Arizona and Mexico, Department of Homeland Security agents flew aircraft to locate and arrest smugglers transporting illegal substances into the United States. At some point, their infrared camera captured something that had a rather strange shape. A mysterious object visually reminiscent of a rubber duck amazed observers and then the American government. In September 2021, a secret video was given to an expert studying aliens. After receiving the video from the Department of Homeland Security, Andy Marshall was shocked to see an object that resembled a rubber duck. First appearing on the internet, the video amazed viewers with the fact that the unknown object is about 2 meters long and moves without any wings or traces of exhaust gases. An object resembling a duck flew in a certain direction for about an hour, and the video of the official federal agency does not allow one to think that this was a montage. The ufology community takes the video extremely seriously, believing that it proves the existence of UFOs. Experts who analyze the recording also differ in their opinions. It is known that unidentified flying objects have common behavioral characteristics, including speed, camouflage, and altitude. As for the so-called rubber duck, it moved too slowly, covering only 15 kilometers in half an hour. Such wind speeds are normal in this area, so it is possible that the secret UFO video is just an object that was picked up by air currents. UFO in Roswell, the beginning of a government conspiracy. On June 24, 1947, a pilot was flying over the Cascade Mountains of Washington state while searching for a crashed military plane. At some point, he noticed 9 crescent-shaped objects flying in formation at an altitude of more than 3 kilometers at a speed of 1,900 kilometers per hour, which at that time seemed unrealistic. Arnold Kenneth was the first to describe unidentified flying objects as saucers. The media learned about this and coined the phrase flying saucer, which later became an integral part of the main modern mystery of mankind. 2 weeks later, on July 7, 1947, a rancher in Roswell contacted the sheriff reporting strange debris. He had heard a story about flying saucers and suggested that one of them might have crashed during a recent storm. After receiving the debris, the sheriff turned it over to the Army Air Base. Soon, the military arrived at the ranch, which began a series of stunning events. Within 24 hours, the authorities completely changed their attitude towards the discovery, saying that the journalists had made a mistake and that what happened had nothing to do with a UFO. In 1978, the Roswell UFO crash became a popular topic. Again, the former military man admitted that the logical explanations were a cover-up and the photographs were staged. He claimed that the real wreckage was replaced to hide the existence of aliens. Those participating in the search knew for sure that it was an extraterrestrial spacecraft, but could not tell people about it. Curious scientists found several more retired military personnel, and they all confirmed the fact of the UFO crash. Skeptics believe that they lied for the sake of a fee, but no one has yet been able to refute or confirm that the U.S. government hit a crashed alien spaceship. To believe in UFOs or not, everyone decides for themselves. Some facts of extraterrestrial civilization are still beyond doubt, forcing us to accept a new reality. At the same time, a Pentagon UFO hunter and former head of the Anomalous Phenomena Investigations Office gave an interview that cannot be ignored. Sean Kirkpatrick admitted that his office has not found any real evidence regarding alien origins. In addition, he denies government conspiracies to hide evidence of the existence of aliens. At the same time, U.S. Air Force veteran David Grush gave a scandalous interview confirming that he participated in hiding the bodies of aliens and extraterrestrial vehicles. Which of them speaks sincerely and which is afraid to admit the truth?
Place where you can find a UFO. American scientist, professor at Northeastern University Brian Helmuth, claims that the search for alien life on Earth should start with the ocean. In his opinion, the oceans and seas hide many mysteries, and people have only a superficial idea of their depths. Helmuth, not being a specialist in the field of UFOs but having knowledge of oceanology, believes that something related to extraterrestrial civilizations can be hidden underwater. I will add that oceanographer Paula Bontempi recently joined a special NASA commission for the study of unidentified objects. Earlier, NASA announced the appointment of a new head of UFO research, Mark McInerney, who previously represented the organization in the Pentagon. This emphasizes the seriousness of the approach to the study of this phenomenon. Copper object. This mysterious artifact made from a single piece of copper alloy puzzles researchers and collectors. The object, rather crudely cast with visible defects, has a head in the shape of a rectangular prism which narrows on all sides to a sharp edge. The handle, smoothly rounded at the end, shows no traces of blows, which indicates that it was not used for striking in the usual sense. Interestingly, the edges of the head previously had parallel lines and scratches that have worn off over time. This may indicate repeated use of the artifact, possibly in the process of cutting, grinding, or scraping. The estimated dating of the artifact varies between 5,000 and 10,000 years, but the exact origin remains unclear. Some researchers hypothesize that this object could have been used for ritual purposes or as part of an unknown technological device. Alternative history proponents believe that such artifacts could have been part of ancient, highly advanced tools created using technology beyond the capabilities of ancient metallurgists. UFO landing pad. Gary Dixon, 62, from Flint, Wales, was driving to Llangollen
when he was caught by a 15-meter white circular disc slowly rotating on the surface of the River Dee in Denbighshire. He was so intrigued by this unusual object that he decided to walk a few kilometers to study it closer. The disc was perfectly round and rotated counterclockwise, creating the impression of a mysterious natural phenomenon. Gary, who was planning to spend a winter day in Llangollen, was so fascinated by what he saw that he stayed to watch it for about half an hour. According to his observations, the disc made one rotation per hour. Ice discs, as it turns out, are not uncommon. This natural phenomenon is observed all over the world, from Russia and China to Scandinavia and North America. The first recorded sighting of an ice disk was in 1895 in the USA on the Mianus River in Connecticut. In recent years, such natural formations have attracted attention due to their impressive size. For example, in January 2019, a 100-meter wide ice disk was discovered on the Presumpscot River in Maine. But an even more impressive case occurred in Canada, where a giant rotating disk with a diameter of 200 meters was spotted on the Tahltan River, which was captured by satellite lenses. These unique ice formations have received different names: ice circles, frying pans, and carousels. Knossos board game. The rules of this game have been lost to time, and to this day, no one knows how it was played. This artifact was discovered during excavations of the Palace of Knossos by British archaeologist Arthur Evans. Knossos, located on the island of Crete, is considered one of the oldest cities in Europe, and the game found dates back to around 1600 BC. Made of precious materials such as ivory, crystal, glass, gold, and silver, the game was not only an expensive pastime, but also perhaps a symbol of the high status of its owner. Archaeologists suggest that the game could have been used not only for entertainment, but also for rituals or divination. Some researchers even hypothesize that the complex patterns on the board may contain astronomical or mystical elements, which is of interest to supporters of the theory of the alien origin of ancient knowledge. Perhaps this mysterious board game once helped people communicate with higher powers or even with extraterrestrial civilizations. Buddha wheels and devil's carousels. Marine bioluminescence, a phenomenon in which some marine life emits light, has been known for a long time. For example, some types of plankton are capable of creating light bright enough to be noticed by the human eye. This phenomenon is often associated with observations of a glow on the surface of the water or just below it. However, in addition to scientific explanations, there are also more mystical stories about mysterious circles on the water. These glowing rings are called Buddha wheels or devil's carousels. Interestingly, the former ones, according to one version, were so named by Eastern sailors and the latter by Europeans. The Chinese considered such phenomena to be favorable omens, while Europeans, in particular Christians, perceived them as a bad omen. Note how people in the West and East observing the same natural phenomenon interpret it completely oppositely. At the same time, despite the popularity of these stories, there is not a single official documented evidence of such phenomena. Perhaps the mysterious glowing circles are associated with marine plankton, which creates a bright glow in the darkness of the ocean. It is also worth noting that such stories about Buddha wheels and devil's carousels are often reflected in folklore, but so far remain only part of myths and legends, not confirmed by factual data. Scientists melt 46,000-year-old ice. Scientists have made a stunning discovery by reviving an ancient nematode that was frozen in Siberia for 46,000 years. The microscopic worm, identified as Panagrolamus colimensis, was found 40 meters underground where it had been dormant since the earliest cave paintings were made. After being thawed, the nematode came back to life, began feeding on bacteria in the lab and reproducing asexually, then leaving a new generation for further study. The nematode's ability to survive in extreme conditions rivals better-known species such as Caenorhabditis elegans, which can survive desiccation and produce a sugar called trehalose that protects against dehydration. This discovery could open up new horizons in understanding biological processes of survival and evolution, suggesting that species can survive in extreme conditions for thousands of years and even revive after a long period of dormancy. If scientists can implant the abilities of these living creatures into humans, we will actually be able to travel in time, since humanity will be able to put people into a state of suspended animation and awaken them in the distant future after tens, hundreds, or thousands of years. Life in a meteorite. Researchers studying a meteorite found on the island of Sri Lanka have said that it is not just a rock fragment from outer space, but a potential artifact of extraterrestrial origin. The analysis revealed the presence of fossils of microscopic algae, which, according to scientists, may be evidence of the panspermia hypothesis, the idea that life is spread throughout the universe via asteroids and comets. These discoveries have attracted widespread interest as they could support the theory of the existence of life beyond Earth. However, the results have been criticized by the scientific community. Some experts argue that the fossils found are too similar to terrestrial microorganisms living in fresh water. The possibility of contamination of the meteorite by terrestrial life forms during its stay on the surface of the Earth also remains a serious argument against the hypothesis of extraterrestrial origin of the find.
Alien visitors in Egypt. Recent archaeological excavations in Egypt have led to a sensational discovery that has attracted the attention of the entire world. Archaeologists have found artifacts in the Giza Plateau area that, according to some scientists, may be evidence that aliens visited Earth 5,000 years ago. It all started with excavations in a recently opened tomb dating back to the Old Kingdom of Egypt. Among the items found, metal plates with mysterious symbols and images of flying objects that resembled modern UFOs stood out. An analysis of the artifacts showed that they were covered in writing in an unknown language. Some scientists suggest that this could be a message from aliens, which the ancient Egyptians could have perceived as contact with another civilization. Linguists are already working to decipher these symbols, but the results remain unclear. Attention was also drawn to the images of unidentified flying objects on the plates, which, according to ufologists, could be a diagram of an alien ship. It seems to me that so far the researchers have made a lot of hasty conclusions, and most likely the interpretation of these plates will be more down to earth. Therefore, it is better to wait until the study of these artifacts is completed and find out what symbols are depicted and why they were there. Neuralgic bronze figurines. These figurines with horned helmets shed light on mysterious people whose origins are still controversial. In the 12th century BC, the Mediterranean faced a catastrophe: the invasion of the so-called Sea Peoples, who united to attack the major civilizations of the Bronze Age. These warlike peoples, described by the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses III, attacked such great powers as Ugarit, the Hittites, Cyprus, the Canaanites, and even the mighty Egypt. It is with their invasions that the Bronze Collapse is associated, the disappearance or weakening of many great states. One of the most mysterious tribes among the Sea Peoples are considered to be the Shurdans, or Shardana. In Egyptian images, they are depicted in horned helmets and armor. However, the most interesting thing is the connection of this people with the island of Sardinia. In the Phoenician inscriptions on the Nora stone, Sardinia is referred to as Srdn, the same name used by the Egyptians to refer to the Shurdans. This theory is supported by the Nuragic bronze statues found on the island. They depict warriors with the same horned helmets as in the reliefs of Ramses III and armed with shields and swords. This raises the question, were the Shurdans originally from Sardinia, or did they settle on the island after their campaigns in the eastern Mediterranean? While historians continue to study the artifacts, this mystery remains unsolved and gives rise to many hypotheses about the role of the Shurdans in the disappearance of Bronze Age civilizations. Rebitters and bioducks. If it seems that the sound anomalies associated with marine UFOs were recorded only by American sailors, then this is not so. Soviet submariners also encountered similar mysterious phenomena. In the 1970s, the crews of Soviet nuclear submarines detected strange sounds reminiscent of the croaking of frogs, which quickly spread in the waters of the North Atlantic, especially in areas controlled by NATO. These sounds were so unusual that they became the subject of numerous discussions and hypotheses. The sounds recorded by the acoustics of Soviet submarines almost always accompanied them and moved at an amazing speed, up to 150 knots. However, active sonar did not record any objects that could be the source of these noises. It was assumed that these sounds came from something too small to detect or were even living creatures. For several years, scientists tried to figure out the nature of these strange rebitters, putting forward various theories, from unexplored phenomena occurring in submarine nuclear reactors to vibrations at the boundary of water layers with different temperatures and salinities. However, the Soviet Academy of Sciences put forward a more likely explanation. The sounds were biological in nature and could come from whales or unknown deep-sea mollusks. Submariners, in turn, did not agree with this, believing that the rebitters were too different from any known sea creatures. Over time, a more realistic version appeared, proposed by skeptics. According to this theory, the submariners mistook the sounds of active buoys dropped from NATO anti-submarine aircraft for the rebitting. These devices, equipped with water-filled power sources, could produce noises similar to croaking. This version explains why rebitters were most often recorded in areas of active NATO patrols and why this anomaly disappeared after the collapse of the USSR. Sailors of the Royal Navy of Great Britain, in turn, recorded similar noises, which they called bioducks, from the English onomatopoeia of quacking. These sounds were recorded in the waters around Australia, where in the 1960s, the most important nuclear testing grounds for the British fleet were located. Since patrols in these waters by the USSR or the USA were unlikely, the British also initially associated these sounds with marine life. It took scientists more than 50 years to establish the source of the bioducks. It turned out that the strange sounds are made by southern minke whales, whales that, before a deep dive, unexpectedly make this sound. Minoan snake goddess. The most famous symbol of the Minoan civilization remains a mystery. One of the most recognizable symbols of all Minoan culture is the snake goddess, yet archaeologists still know little about her. Given her popularity, you might think that scientists would have a good understanding of this artifact by now. But since her discovery in 1903, there has been ongoing debate about who or what she represents. Dating to around 1600 BC, this faience figurine is rare in Minoan art, making it even more mysterious. Some archaeologists believe that she represents a goddess who is the patron of animals, while others believe that the woman depicted on the figurine has nothing to do with snakes at all. It is believed that the snakes in her hands are actually ropes and that the statue itself was significantly restored by Arthur Evans, which has led to many misconceptions and misinterpretations. Eclipse battle. Imagine two kings who have been waging a bitter war for 5 years, losing their soldiers but seeing no end to the confrontation. And suddenly, when the sky, filled with the sounds of battle, darkens, a solar eclipse occurs. At this moment, the warriors on both sides freeze, lower their weapons, watching in amazement as a natural phenomenon eclipses human rage. The kings decide to declare a truce. This event became known as the Battle of the Eclipse, written about by the Greek historian Herodotus. In 585 BC, on the Halys River in Asia Minor, where the Lydians led by King Alyats and the Medes led by Cyaxares fought, an eclipse occurred that was predicted in advance. Historians believe that it was the Greek astronomer Thales of Miletus who predicted it. This eclipse, which was the first in history to be predicted by a human, has generated a lot of controversy. Predicting a solar eclipse is a difficult task. However, calculations have shown that the eclipse did indeed occur in 585, but not on Thales' supposed date of May 18, 584. Some believe that Thales could have used data from previous observations, but his accuracy is questionable, especially in light of the lack of astronomical instruments and records from that time. Historians also argue about the details of the battle. For example, Pliny only mentions the king of Lydia in his work, while the name of the Median ruler is questionable. In any case, despite these controversial points, the Battle of the Eclipse remains an important historical event. As a result of the eclipse, a truce was concluded, and the Halys River became the border between the two warring states. Stationary underwater objects. There are many stationary anomalous objects hidden in the oceans that still remain a mystery to scientists. Even if we put aside myths such as the legends of Atlantis, the list of interesting finds is still impressive. One of the most famous is the Inagui Monument, located near the Ryukyu Islands, not far from the Japanese Yonaguni. These are stone structures located at a shallow depth that have regular geometric shapes. Despite the fact that most scientists consider them to be a natural geological formation, many researchers and pseudo-archaeologists are trying to prove that these stones are the result of human activity. Another mystery is the megalith found at the bottom of the Gulf of Pantelleria Vecchia in the Tunisian Strait. This is a huge stone, 12 meters long and weighing 15 tons, in which there are 3 round holes. Based on its structure, it is assumed that it was processed by man in the Mesolithic, about 15,000 years ago. However, rock analysis showed that its age could be much higher, more than 40,000 years, which casts doubt on its origin. The Cuban underwater city is another mysterious discovery made in 2001 off the west coast of Cuba. With the help of sonar, geometric structures resembling pyramids and rings consisting of granite blocks were discovered. These findings raised a lot of questions among researchers, as they could be both natural formations and the result of human activity. These and other objects remain the subject of active research and discussion because their origin can reveal a lot of unknown things about ancient civilizations and the nature of the ocean depths. Alien ship fragments in the ocean. A renowned Harvard University astrophysicist, Avi Loeb, who gained popularity for his UFO research and possible contacts with aliens, reported the possible discovery of alien ship fragments on the ocean floor. Loeb became famous for his theory about the unusual nature of the asteroid Oumuamua, which accelerated and deviated from the expected trajectory for no apparent reason in 2017, which led the scientists to suggest its artificial origin. Recently, Loeb drew attention to a meteorite that fell into the Pacific Ocean in 2014. The object, known as IM-1, was distinguished by an unusual speed of movement. The scientist went to the site of its fall and, together with his team, extracted fragments from a depth of 1,700 meters. As a result, they discovered about 50 small balls consisting of iron, magnesium, and titanium, about 0.3 millimeters in size. Loeb and his colleagues suggest that these spherules may be evidence of an alien spacecraft crash landing on Earth. However, many scientists are skeptical of his hypothesis, arguing that such fragments with such a composition may be the result of natural processes that occur when meteorites fall into the atmosphere and onto the ocean floor. A call from aliens. Humanity has been sending signals into space for decades, hoping to establish contact with alien civilizations. But what if Earth ever receives a response? If scientists manage to detect signs of extraterrestrial life, then most likely the first to know about it will be specialists from the SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, program. This project began its work back in 1959 when scientists began to study signals from space. Today, powerful computers are used to analyze a huge number of radio signals, tracking any unusual patterns. According to Seth Shostak, SETI's chief astronomer, even if a signal from aliens is detected, it will not lead to panic. All the results will be confirmed by other telescopes and the whole world will definitely know about it. In the end, the news of such a discovery will instantly spread through the media and social networks. Although previous attempts to contact aliens have resulted in false alarms, scientists believe it is important to prepare for real contact. But the question of how to respond to aliens remains open. It will require international cooperation, and the main language of communication, according to scientists, will be mathematics. Professor Paul Davis from Arizona State University leads a team working on a response. It is believed that aliens may simply send a signal to say, "Hello, Earthlings, we are here." But how to express the essence of human life or our values using mathematics remains a challenge. Ancient chemical weapons. Archaeologist Simon James from the University of Leicester has presented the results of his research, which could change our understanding of the use of chemical weapons in ancient times. He claims to have found evidence of the use of poisonous substances in 256 AD, during the siege of the Roman city of Dura Europos on the banks of the Euphrates River. James's research focused on excavations carried out in this ancient city, which was besieged by the Persian army. In one of the tunnels dug by the Romans to prevent the enemy from advancing, the remains of 20 soldiers were found. These men died while standing in their passages, and James proposed the theory that the use of chemical weapons could have caused their deaths. Traces of bitumen and sulfur crystals were found in the tunnel, substances that emit toxic fumes when burned. According to the scientists, the Persians could have installed a brazier in their tunnel, placing these materials on it. When the Romans breached the wall, deadly fumes began to leak out, killing all the city's defenders within minutes. Despite the use of chemical weapons, the Persian army was unable to breach the city's walls through the mines. However, Dura Europos was captured, and the methods by which the Persians managed to do so remain unclear. Stone tools in Dagestan. Archaeological finds have been made in Dagestan that significantly expand our understanding of the ancient history of mankind. The main objects of the study were the ancient sites of Mukkai I and Mukkai II, located along ancient riverbeds. Stone tools dating back millions of years were found here. The finds at the Mukkai I site attracted particular attention. Among them were flat picks, double-sided choppers, and other tools similar to those found at the Ainikab I site. These finds date back to the period 1.95–1.78 million years ago, which makes them some of the most ancient in Russia. The tools found at Mukkai I indicate a high level of technology among ancient people. They used stone chips to create chopping and cutting tools. However, unlike similar finds in East Africa, no hand axes were found here, which may indicate unique technologies typical of this part of the world. Of interest are also giant tools weighing 5–6 kilograms, which according to scientists were used to split bones and skulls to extract bone marrow. Such tools are found at sites where ancient people cut up trophies. Kryptonite on Earth. Jadeite, a mineral discovered in 2006 in Serbia, attracted attention due to its striking similarity to kryptonite, the fictional substance that weakens Superman. The chemical composition of jadeite is almost identical to the kryptonite described in the film Superman Returns, including sodium, lithium, borosilicate, and hydroxide. However, unlike its fictional counterpart, jadeite does not contain fluorine, which gave kryptonite its famous green glow. This is why jadeite is white. The discovery of this mineral has attracted great interest from both scientists and science fiction fans, becoming an example of how fiction sometimes intersects with reality. Jadeite was found exclusively in the Jadar River Valley in Serbia and is of interest due to its high lithium content, which is used in the production of batteries. The sculpted rocks of Rothenef. In 1879, in the small town of Châteauneuf-de-Gallour in southeastern France, a postman began building a unique palace that would last 33 years. This fantastic palace, known as the Palais Cheval, was a true work of art created without great expense or specialized training. About 15 years later, on the other side of France, in Brittany, the priest Adolphe Julien Fouéré, later nicknamed the Cheval of Breton, began creating stunning sculptures. He was ordained a priest in 1863, but after losing his hearing in 1894, he retired. He settled in the small village of Rothenef, where he began working in the art brut genre, art created outside of official culture. Fouéré created hundreds of wooden sculptures from 1894 to 1907, including totem poles, figures of saints and political figures, animals, and mythological creatures. However, his most notable work was the more than 300 sculptures carved into the granite cliffs of the Emerald Coast. These brightly colored figures and bas-reliefs depict fantastical characters, historical events, and mythology. from saints and explorers to majestic figures like Cleopatra and Napoleon. His works attracted thousands of tourists, and the city of St. Malo even built a tram line to cope with the influx of spectators. Unfortunately, in 1907, Feuer suffered from paralysis, which limited his creativity. He died in 1910, but his works continued to attract attention. Today, these sculptures are in danger of deteriorating due to the effects of time and nature. UFOs in the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages are often thought of as an era of wars, diseases, and dark superstitions without electricity or other modern conveniences. However, this period also saw the birth of important advances, such as universities, the printing press, and the first books. Not only did these advances influence the development of science and education, but they also provided historical evidence, including unusual events in the sky that could be interpreted as UFO encounters. One such example is a news leaflet issued in April 1561 describing a mass sighting in Nuremberg. On April 14, 1561, at dawn, residents of the city witnessed a collision of various objects in the sky. Spheres, cylinders, and other strange shapes. These objects fought with each other, and then one of them, a large black triangle, appeared in the air. The event lasted for several hours but did not cause any harm to the townspeople. Some believe that these were mass hallucinations, others that it could have been a UFO collision. Such events are not limited to Nuremberg. In 1566, in Switzerland, in the city of Basel, similar phenomena were observed. Strange figures in the sky, reminiscent of combat between celestial objects. In 1665, in Berlin, fishermen witnessed a battle of airships, as well as a strange object reminiscent of a modern description of a UFO. These stories indicate that UFOs could be part of human mythology and were documented long before the 20th century. Mysterious disappearance at the lighthouse. A lighthouse is a place that invariably evokes a feeling of loneliness and anxiety. The story of the disappearance of 3 lighthouse keepers from the Flannan Islands has become a real mystical mystery, attracting the attention of lovers of unexplained events. It all began in 1900, when a helicopter crew was sent to Isle Moore, part of the Flannan Islands, to check on the work of the lighthouse and its keepers, Thomas Marshall, James Duckett, and Donald MacArthur. When they arrived, they found that no one was there, as if the men had simply disappeared. An overturned chair was found inside the lighthouse, untouched food was on the table, and the clock did not work. The ship's log reported that there was a strong storm in the area, but there were no reports of it in the surrounding areas. Based on this, it was assumed that the keepers died, carried away by the sea during their work, but the lack of traces of blood and other evidence gave rise to many mystical theories. Some believe that Isle Moore Island has a sinister aura that affects people, causing them to lose their minds. Mysterious disappearances, lack of logical explanations, and strange details have made this story the basis for legends that speak of supernatural forces and even aliens. The lack of exact facts only fuels mystical theories, leaving more questions than answers. A terrifying find in Kuwait. A unique 7,000-year-old clay figurine reminiscent of aliens has been found in Kuwait, marking a major breakthrough in archaeology. The discovery was made at the Bara 1 archaeological site, which dates back to the 6th millennium BC. The figurine depicts a head with slanted eyes, a flat nose, and an elongated skull, which makes it similar to modern ideas about aliens. This discovery is the first of its kind in the Arabian Gulf region, although similar artifacts have previously been found in Mesopotamia. The figurine reflects the artistic traditions of the Ubaid culture, which was known for its unique ceramics and figurines. Interestingly, the figurine was made from Mesopotamian clay, not local ceramics, indicating cultural exchange. Ubaid art included the creation of figurines with symbolic meaning, and this discovery may help to understand the spiritual practices of ancient societies. The figurines may have been associated with religious rites or served as symbols of social status. And until science confirms the existence of guests from outer space, everyone decides for themselves about the nature of mysterious flying objects. Share this video with your friends and write a kind comment under the video. Thanks for watching. Bye, everyone.